Hey, welcome back. It's David Wilcock. I don't have my alien mask on. I'm sorry if I let some of you down for that reason. We're also trying a new thing. We're doing ultra low latency, which I should be able to do. So that means instead of it being a 30-second delay, it's almost instantaneous. Should be only a couple of seconds. And they say that that will allow me to have better interaction with you guys. So welcome to the show. I'm David Wilcock, and this is going to be probably the weirdest of all the weird shows that I've ever done in my life. And you'll see why in a little while. I am happy to be here today. I do still have the zit under my eye, so I'll just start on the close. Yeah, it's right there. This has been a great thing, though, in some ways, because, you know, it's been kind of a big problem. Like, people are saying the chat slowed down. I've already got lots and lots of fan interaction going on here. Hi, David. Long time no see. What's your take on JP, Dr. Sal's buddy? I haven't heard about him yet, but I did hear there's a new insider that's talking about 20 and back, so I guess that's probably what you're talking about. Somebody says, badass. I loved your Ascension Mysteries book. So excited to see you. G'day, Dave from Australia, mate. All right. Got to have a bit of representation for Colin McGeezer. You know how it goes, mate. You got to cook things out there on the barbecue. I don't ever do shrimp on the barbie, though. That's one Australian thing I won't do because it's just too derivative and too... Oh, my gosh, I'm already making money. $20 from Spirit Dragon, $1.99 from Daisy Alvin Fred. Dave, I love you. Please, please get some help. Look, you guys are my strength. You're my help. So if you're mean to me, I might get a little sad, but if you're nice to me, I'm going to feel better. I did an event last weekend. I was really happy about that. Extreme Northern Adventure says, I love you. Hi, David. How are you? Joan Rippey says, I'm excited to hear from Southern California. Do an interview with Hidden in Plain Sight if you believe your claims are truthful. Well, I don't need to talk to skeptics. That's always a setup. They have intellectual dishonesty. And in fact, one of the things that I wanted to go through today is the proof that I went through something very similar to what Corey Good and I were talking about on Cosmic Disclosure, the idea of a secret space program. This really hit me out of nowhere. It came to me as I was working on my stuff for the Michael Prophecies. It started out with September 2021. I had this weird prophecy about the idea that we were going to have a coup over the military-industrial complex. Yeah, that sounds crazy. And its stranglehold over UFO information. A coup over the... How do you even get something like that? The military-industrial complex is seen to be so huge, and most people, as I've been going through week after week, are not aware of the enormity of what's going on. But anyway, I want to read a little more comments here. We got 2,000 people already. Today, David's coming out as an alien. Yay! You are wonderful and helpful. Wow, it's starting to get really fast. Look at the speed, folks. I can barely even read it. David, will your new series, Michael Prophecies, be in book form? Yes, we are going to do that. But in the meantime, it's available right now. Just like, to show my age, there was a television show when I was a kid called Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Well, I'm doing 7 books for $70. That's right. The Michael Prophecies is being discounted to just $10 a copy. You have to buy the whole thing for $70. And we're doing this for a fundraiser. This is a good thing. I think you're going to realize once you hear today's talk why Michael Prophecies is so exciting, why you might want to read this. There's very, very compelling stuff going on here. And I am very excited because we are finally going to get through something that just popped up this morning that has blown my mind. Now, when I was at the conference last week, I had a woman there whose name was Jimena, and she was from Santiago, Chile. And in fact, our whole entire administrative staff for this event, which was at the Best Western Inn in Loveland, Colorado, the whole event was actually being done and run by Latinos. And we had people from Brazil, we had people from Mexico. It was awesome. So our whole administrative staff was Latino. And I mean, I don't know, like now they want you to call it Latinx or something, and then it became Latin, but now people don't like that. I'm just going to go with Latino. That's what we heard in college. You know, that term was widely used. when I was in college in the mid-90s. But anyway, that became one of the interesting things that showed up in a time loop, the idea that I was going to be at an event that was run by people who are Latino. And there's a lot of other things to talk about today. Anyway, Jimena came up to me and she talked about a series of Virgin Mary apparitions that took place between 1961 and 65 in Spain at Garabandal. And I didn't even actually look for this stuff until this morning. And when I saw it, I was so amazed. It is exactly the same thing that they say in the Michael Prophecies, and it features Archangel Michael. Now, there's also going to be some very interesting stuff in this show because it was around February of 2022. My divorce had happened. I'm living alone in this house. I have no money. I am dealing with trying to write these books, which I already had started this process by researching what these readings had been that I had pulled through back in the 1990s. So in case you haven't heard this before, let's go close again just for fun. In 1996, I received telepathic communication that was utilizing the principles of remote viewing. And remote viewing was being widely talked about on the Art Bell Show, the top paranormal radio show, 20 million listeners on all over the place on the AM radio dial at night. You can hear it anywhere in America. It was syndicated. And his favorite guests talked about remote viewing and the idea that the military had come up with a way for people to be psychic, where you tune in to coordinates that are just random numbers, but those coordinates are assigned by somebody else, not even the person in the room with you, not your trainer, but somebody else completely apart assigns a location to these two numbers. Then you are given the numbers under hypnosis. You do this special technique that's a mind awake, body asleep. You get yourself into a deep trance. And then the thoughts that naturally arise in your mind, you write them down as data. And what they found was that if people were properly trained in this technique, Barbarella just sent me $20. That's pretty exciting. Thank you, Barbarella. If you get trained in this technique, they claim reliably that people can get up to 99% accuracy in describing a remote location. And so they would often send people to the sewage treatment plant in Fort Meade, Maryland, as a joke, because you're going to smell sewage and you're going to see gross things. And that was one of the things they would do to test people to see if your remote viewing really worked. Not a really fun thing to go look at. Pete Peterson, this insider, told me years later, in 2009, that the remote viewing protocols were specifically designed because if you don't stop people from hearing the words in their minds when they do this and then writing those words down, then what they start getting is Christian angels talking to them very reliably. The Christian angels show up. Christian angels, that's BS. I don't even believe in any of that stuff. So the answer is yes, there are Christian angels. They're out there. Daisy Alvin Fred says, what powers did we get with the eclipse? We're going to talk about that. There are ongoing shifts going on. I've had a profound shift. I have been clean since this past weekend's conference. Woohoo! The worst day was 2 days ago. I was having a lot of withdrawals. I was using cannabis for PTSD, complex PTSD. I think I've mostly gotten through the complex PTSD now. And as a result, I just don't want either the up of sativa or the down of indica. Either one to me now is just like too intense. It makes me kind of bored. It makes me have sleep problems, anxiety, nervousness. And so for a while when I was really going through this stuff, it was very helpful, but I am sober. And so that's really exciting. I've been sleeping a lot better. The circles under my eyes are going away already. It's really actually very exciting. So thank you guys for all the congratulations. And C-Dub says, we love you, David. I can't stand all you haters that have nothing better else to do. CPTSD is no joke. Yes, it is. Well, look, I had fun, and I did it twice in my life. I did it from age 15 to 19, and then I did it from 2019 until about a week ago. I don't even know exactly what day we can count. I'll give you a little secret. On Friday night, I did use a little bit before I met my audience, and I'm like, okay, that's it. I don't want to be around people at all when I'm on this stuff. It's just, I get nervous and introspective and anxious, and I'm not really confident anymore. and I have anxiety, and I just don't need it. It's too much. So this is a really good thing. I didn't know if I was going to want to do it or not, and I also said to myself, you know what? It's not a big deal if I don't stop. If I have to keep going, that's fine, because this is a medically recognized and legal treatment for PTSD. Now, why would I have PTSD? We're going to go into that, because in February of 2022, Archangel Michael was the source that I had remote viewed in the 1990s. As I said, Pete Peterson was telling me that people have these visions in their minds of words, and the words can either be seen on paper as writing, or sometimes you hear them. I've had both things, but beginning on November 10th, 1996, I used the principles of remote viewing, which again, scientifically documented. There was publications about how to do this that had been leaked by the military. So I used the military's own 99% accurate method, but I jumped right over the idea of a physical location, and I did what you're not supposed to do, which is to listen to these voices. And it's very difficult to get these. It's not like it's easy. You have to really focus and concentrate, very deep meditation. It's an incredible consciousness discipline involved in getting this done. And right from the first day, it started predicting the future, and it clearly identified itself from the very first day as Christian, because the best prophecy on November 10th, 1996, was that it said, one of our women, Teresa, it was talking about Mother Teresa, but who's our, right? Is that angels? That's what it seemed like. One of our women, Teresa, a sibling, sibling, like a brother and sister. Who gives you brothers and sisters? Your mother, Mother Teresa, the sibling, right? It's a code. One of our women, Teresa, a sibling, inoperative. And then to make it even more obvious, they said the Christian psychically. Well, then about a few days, less than a week later, something like that, I forget exactly how many days, Mother Teresa has a heart attack. And that was very, very provocative. And then when she died a year later, it was within just 1 or 2 days of when Princess Diana died. And so we had Princess Mother, a feminine archetypal passage of these two beloved female leaders who both disappeared from the planet at the same time. And so this was a prophecy that happened on the very first day that I did these readings, and it absolutely was stunning. So for me to see this and then realize, wow, how did they predict the future, and who's they? Who am I talking to? Why are they saying our women, Teresa? What is going on here? Well, this was just the beginning of a fascinating adventure. I wasn't really interested at all in Christianity. I had been reading the Law of One since early 1996, and this was what tuned me to be able to get my own contact. When you become aware of sacred materials, it becomes easier to tune into what that voice is, and you can have that voice live in your heart and in your mind. In other words, these spiritual teachings are not just meant to entertain you. It's not just supposed to be new information so that it feeds your curiosity and your ego. When you get these angelic beings and they're the real thing, what happens is they want to tell you stuff about your soul. They want to tell you about soul growth. They want to tell you about your personal development. They're very interested in what you're going to do in terms of how you think about yourself and how you think about other people. And again, as I've always said, it all comes back to love. The message is always consistent. The message is to be more loving, more accepting, more forgiving, and more compassionate. So yes, we have a constant cavalcade of negativity in the comments. Live streaming is kind of a weird, crazy thing, right? Because if you watch this show and you're also trying to read the comments at the same time, there's so many of them, and some people are just incredibly rude, incredibly disrespectful, and they always accuse me of two things. They say, oh my God, David has an ego, and oh my God, David is making money. Well, if you don't have an ego, then it turns out people will overthrow you. So there is a fine line between confidence and pride. And I think that my confidence is often mistaken for pride, but I believe that in many, many ways I've shown myself to be ego-less because I have done so much work that was free and just cranked it out there and put it out there, and I've really monetized very little. There are many, many things I could do that would make me money that I haven't done. And the main reason why is that people get upset when they have to pay for something and it excludes some people, and I don't really like that. So I've always strived to have as much of my material be free as possible, you know, so that everybody can access it. And as I hopefully get my company financed, it looks very good now. We have 3 deals that are extremely close, so I would imagine by the end of May that I will be capitalized. Thank God. I can't even tell you, because this has been crazy. People were donating money to me at this event. It was really great. One couple gave me like $1,500 in an envelope. I had a couple other donations that were almost that big as well. So I came out with like almost $4,000 in donations of cash from this event, which was just stunning. So thank you guys, everybody who did that. That was very, very amazing. And it really did help me out a lot. I actually was able to get a replacement for my refrigerator. So finally, on Friday, I'm having a new replacement refrigerator. It's not one of the highest high-end ones, but it is suitable. It's 42 inches wide, 7 feet tall. Oh, thank God. I can't wait, because as you heard me talk about before, the sound of my refrigerator drives me out of my mind. It's very loud, and I found out, yeah, it's a 25-year-old Sub-Zero fridge. They have very large compressors, and as they get older and older, there's corrosion inside the pipes, and that makes them vibrate, which creates a lot more noise. So this sound has been driving me out of my mind. If you've been hearing what I've been saying, I have to spend most of my time in this house with earplugs and Bose headphones on. The noise is so loud it cuts through the wall of my bedroom. I even hear it in my bedroom with the door closed. That's how bad it is. So anyway, things are turning around. I'm feeling a lot better. And obviously, if I'm getting sober, that means that I'm really starting to feel much better, because now I'm just happy with my life and I don't need any medication to try to feel better. And again, everything I've done is legal. Colorado is a great place to be interested in this stuff, but not for me anymore. I really do feel I've reached a critical tipping point here. My mind is clearer, I'm sleeping much better, and my eyes are clearing up. So I'm very excited about that. Let's have a few more comments here. Tarotina says, good. Philip Maxwell Astrology says, ego is a double-edged sword. You need it, but the issue is when it thinks that this is what the whole experience is about. I totally agree. Where we're going, we don't need refrigerators. That's awesome. I'm like, why can't somebody make a silent refrigerator? Maybe we'll do that. Can't wait to see your free energy power plant for the world. Well, yeah, we have some very exciting stuff going on. There is a guy who is probably going to be capitalizing our company, and I'll be probably keeping this mostly quiet about who it is and what's going on. Somebody says, we need to get David to President Trump's financial level. That will really anger the haters, LOL. That could happen. Honestly, that could happen. But I want to say that my focus, if it does, is going to be to reinvest the money that I have as much as I can into things like anti-gravity and free energy. And this is real. I mean, our company is going to help to get this technology out there. But at the same time, of course, I'm taking huge risks. We may have had some type of weird directed energy attack on this event, because I could not sleep at all on Friday night. I laid there in bed from midnight to 7 a.m., never slept a wink. I only slept 4 hours the next night from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. That was it. So by Sunday night, we got the heck out of there. We came back here, and then I slept like a baby. And this, that was another thing. 2 nights of sleeplessness was another thing that really kind of helped me say, I'm just done with using anything. If this had anything to do with the medication, then let's just get rid of it, because I want to sleep. I've had so many times with this medication where I'm lying there in bed and I just can't sleep at all. It's horrible. Ruben Nablandian, $20. Thank you very much. Weed acts like a tinfoil hat without the tinfoil, says Josh Kensmo. Well, I don't know. I mean, it was good for me. I don't want to put too much shame on it. I think there's a lot of hatred around it, but there are really, really miraculous healings that people have had from PTSD and eating disorders and all kinds of things. It did really do wonders for me. I mean, I've been here alone for 3 years, no friends, and I was able to make that work. 8 months of winter a year, lots of snow, lots of wind. Somehow I've made this happen. Definitely once I get all my debts paid, I definitely want to have a place to go in the winter. That's another thing I'm thinking about, is where am I going to live now in the winter? Because I don't want to get stuck here again. It is rough. After I had that 7-day blackout and after I had the 5 feet of snow, both within like a week and a half of each other, I'm just done. David, your inner harmonics are amazing, says Fraser Ray, a shattered spirit, shattered soul. I'm sorry if you feel that your soul is shattered. What do you think about the Malaysia info coming out showing it was warped? Dominic Lafata. Yeah, that's a good one. I talked about that in the movie Moment of Truth, and you do see this leaked video from 2 sources of this weird energy around Flight 370, and then it all of a sudden disappears. I was talking about that back in 2009 as the whole idea of masking. That was one of the things Pete Peterson told me. You can create a gravitational bottle around a flying object and cause it to be not visible. So Fox Lady just donated $30. David, please introduce the guitar behind you. Just a few words about it. It is a beauty. Okay, well, we can do that. It won't take but a second. So I got this at a rare guitar shop. This is a Fender Stratocaster, and it was a rare edition because they made it with blue sparkles. So I actually do play guitar. I'm just a little shy, and I haven't quite gotten to the point of wanting to come out with this yet. But mostly what I do is fingerstyle. I'm not really more of a lead player yet. Lead and fingerstyle are very, very different arts. So let me get my light back on there. We'll get this all set up again. I don't want to look at it, though. So yes, I have some cool guitars. I'm glad you guys like my guitar. I bought it at Norm's Rare Guitars in Los Angeles, and it was a great purchase. And let's see if I can get this light to stay. It's all kind of Mickey Mouse here, folks, you know, but hey, what the hell. All right, now I got the light on there. It makes it look more cool. India, man, it's hot in winter and hot in summer. Okay, well, yeah, maybe I could go to India. Every time you go to an Indian restaurant, they tell you that you got to move to India. That's one of the funny things that happens to me. But anyway, back to the story. So it was back in 2022 that I found out that in 1983 that none other than Ghislaine Maxwell was working at Disney World. When I saw that article, it blew my mind because I visited Disney World with my family in 1984, and we were meeting with all the higher-ups. And I'm going to show you absolute scientific proof that I am not lying about that in today's show. There's a lot of things in today's show that are very interesting and contentious. So when all this stuff started to come out for me, I was getting these messages from Michael, and then I began to realize, oh my God, it's not just like prophetic of one thing in 1996. The whole entire series of Michael readings that I did, this is Archangel Michael, the source eventually said that's who it was in 99. I wasn't too excited about that. I wasn't looking for a Christian contact. I wasn't out there trying to draw in Christianity in any way. My family in general was pretty ambivalent about it, and so I'm like, you know, it wasn't a big thing on my bucket list to go try to make contact telepathically with Christian angels. I had no idea this was going to happen. So what ended up occurring is that they told me that I had something called a parallel life. So in this show, we're going to give scientific evidence of this parallel life abuse trauma that I went through because, yes, it was abusive, and it had to do with the Disney World. It appears that they were looking for gifted children. I was in a gifted children's program, ironically enough, called Pyramid, and that meant that half the day, every day in school, from first grade all the way up through sixth grade, I believe, I spent half of my day in a private room with like 6 other kids alone. And if now, as I'm thinking about it, if they were using hypnosis and they could, you know, cause us to have missing time, how would I even know? How would I even recognize that time had gone by or what these people were doing? But again, that's the type of access that might have indicated that there was something more nefarious going on. And what is now turned into is that I have scientific evidence. Archangel Michael is using this prophecy to tell me that I had a parallel life where I was taken in spaceships that had crashed here and had been captured by the Deep State, or DS, and that they then were apparently working through General Electric. We had the General Electric main plant right across the street from me in Schenectady, so it was only 10 minutes driving away. There's this massive factory. At the time, it was the largest factory in the world. back in the 70s, 60s, 50s. It was the largest factory on Earth. And it appears that they had some secret hangars in there where they had these spaceships that they had either crashed here or they'd reverse engineered them. And they were able to take people like me and bring them out in the middle of the night and then bring them back, and you get brought back to the moment you left because this is a time machine. And so this is a very strange thing because I'm getting this type of information while also getting incredibly accurate prophecies about things like 9/11, about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, the document scandals that both Biden and Trump have been going through, the Afghanistan withdrawal, the Chinese balloon scare, the Israeli war. All of the things that have been happening in our world were being written in these books in the 1990s as I'm unsealing them. So it took me 2 years to put these books together. I started doing it in really September of 2021. I got very involved by February of 2022, and I didn't even have the first book done and out until December 2022, and that was Michael Prophecies Book 1. Then I had another one come out, I believe I don't think it was until March. That was Book 2, or no, maybe it was, so Book 2 was March of 2023. Then Book 3 came out, I think, in May 2023. And then I did 4, 5, 6, and 7 all between June and October of 2023. So I worked my butt off. I didn't have time to do anything. The prophecies were so amazing. I put them in red, and I have 7 books that are all about 500 pages each, roughly speaking. So 3,500 pages. I mean, this is an incredible amount of material. But it's all prophetic. Every single one of the 7 books is prophetic. And now, as I said, I've slashed the price. You have to order the books only option. It's at thedisclosure.com, and then put in the code REVELATION, just that word, REVELATION. And then you'll get them for only $70. And that's really going to help me out until we get this deal. Because again, I've just barely had enough money to get by now. And that's it's a funny thing when you start working with Christian angels, how they want you to be in poverty, and they want you to meditate, and they want you to be celibate and all this kind of, well, that's what I was doing. I mean, I've done what you're supposed to do. The classic meditation gambit, right, is you live up in the mountains, you're alone, you're in a temple, you have no money, you have no social interaction, and you just meditate. And that's what I've been doing for 3 years. And most of the time I was working on these books. So the whole thing was so shocking because they're predicting the future with such stunning accuracy, and at the same, Archangel Michael, they're predicting the future with such stunning accuracy, and at the same time, they're telling me that I had this weird parallel lifetime that had abuse in it. And I want to show you those excerpts today because what has happened is that I have now become the insider as well as the investigator. In other words, when we're looking at all these classic UFO cases, the cases that are the best always have to do with documents. How many documents do we have? How much documentation? And in my case, I have a stunning amount of documentation that proves, or at least strongly suggests, that the stuff that Michael told me about having these abusive parallel lifetimes was true. That there apparently, so let's go back a little bit. It was in September of 2021 that my Area 51 insider, Chris Beskar, who's also the CEO of Aerospace, told me that there are very evil extraterrestrials here, like reptilians and greys, and that those are essentially satanic. That the whole idea of what we're seeing in the Bible is way more accurate than we thought. And so there's a whole question that we have to go through now of understanding the light and the darkness. And after he starts telling me this stuff, I started to realize the Bible is far more accurate than we could imagine. The traditional ideas that people have about Satan and demons and hell. Up until this Michael stuff happened, I totally wrote that stuff off. You go back and watch my old videos. Satan, I don't know. Hell, no, that's not true. It's just a construct. It's just a fantasy. It's not real. In fact, I remember looking at the Quran and thinking that because the Quran mentioned hell, that it must have been a less accurate transmission. I didn't really want to go public with that because it would make people mad. But now, oh, wait a minute, okay. There absolutely is a hell. And then it turns out it's all in the law of one. So One of the principles of the law of one is that there are negative extraterrestrials that are ruled by something they call the fifth density negative companion. And in fifth density, you have a being that's energy, but it can project itself into human form. So these human ETs are actually fifth density beings that have energy as their natural form, but if they want to, with a fairly difficult mental configuration, as they call it, they can project into human bodies. Well, so can the evil. And one of the things that we just learned about last weekend from Chris Beskar, he'd mentioned it a couple times and I just laughed at him. He said, yeah, there's something in Antarctica that's called Lucifer's Palace. There's actually this palace in Antarctica. It's much more ornate and fantastic than any building on Earth. It dwarfs even things like the Taj Mahal or anything you can imagine. The architecture is absolutely stunning, incredibly ornate, so that when you go in there, you would be led to believe this is the ruler of the world. And apparently, people go in there and they see an entity manifest in human form. It can look any way that it wants, but it usually comes out looking like an attractive male. And this is apparently a projection of Lucifer as the fifth density negative companion. So the law of one has some very strange stuff, as I've been going over week after week here, where it says that we are, in fact, all being led by negative ETs who then infiltrated the elite. They want to create people who have lots of money. They want to create people who have lots of power. And they have an inside network where you have to do this. Now, this is where it gets really bizarre. If it isn't bizarre enough already, you have negative extraterrestrials and they are not allowed by universal law to actually appear in our skies in person unless they have a sufficient calling, which thankfully we haven't given them. But they work behind the scenes where they will make direct contact with people who want to be negative on Earth. There's two components to this extraterrestrial evil. There is extraterrestrial and then there is demonic. And extraterrestrials and demons are two completely different things. Extraterrestrials have flesh bodies all the time. Demons only have a quasi-flesh-like body when they are invoked by humans in a special ceremony that has to be done exactly a certain way. I've talked about this before, but if you do this a certain way, you will apparently see them. And so one of the things that Chris told me in this big disclosure was there is no space without Satan. All of the stuff that we were doing as humans in these classified projects that involves going into space involves direct collaboration with reptilians, insectoids, and greys. This is just as common and everyday in that world as dogs and cats are here. And then what's even stranger than that is that there is this non-physical reality as well. And the law of one calls this time-space. So in time-space, what we have is the heavenly worlds and the hellish worlds, and they exist in sort of a thought form capacity. They're not as real as space-time, but the law of one calls it time-space. It gets really deep in the weeds here. I'll just give you a brief little thing. It says that space and time invert. And so the 3 dimensions of space become 3 dimensions of time. So when you move around in time-space physically, you're actually moving in time. If you were to pop over into time-space, which these ships can do, these UFOs, then guess what? You're time traveling. All you have to do is negate your own gravity. Gravity is what powers time. So it turns out that when you shut off gravity, you also shut off time. And I'm going to show you some very, very interesting stuff about that. Catherine Swees donated $20. Thank you. She says, grateful for your science shares, your authentic and caring sharing with us. All the best. I hope you keep your buns warm this winter, restoring our grateful presence, intelligent, caring presence here on Earth. Thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate that. So again, the concept is that there are these thought form worlds. They are, as I said in the last show, organized into 7 layers. So Dante's Inferno, the 7 layers of hell, that's all apparently true. We talked about Hitler being kept in one of these layers after his death in what Law of One, colloquially calls a healing process. This type of healing might not be very fun. So when I start to put this all together, you find out that these extraterrestrials are facilitators for getting negative demonic entities into our reality. And in 1917, Aleister Crowley was contacted by a weird extraterrestrial gray being. It looks just like a gray that called itself Lam. And before that, it was contacted by Aiwass. We talked about how the 120-year anniversary of that contact in 1904 was celebrated on the solar eclipse by the deep state, where according to Shadow of Ezra, this channel that's very, very important on Telegram and Twitter, this was something that they tried to do. They're trying to apparently summon this being again. And there was some pretty compelling stuff there if you go back and watch that show. So anyway, it appears that Greys showed up to Aleister Crowley and taught him how to properly summon demons. And that everybody got really excited about this in this dark world, because now if they do this ceremony, they get this magic trick. And you see this creature, and it actually looks you in the eye. It can't talk with its mouth. It can only make horrible screeching and terrible sounds. It can't talk, but it will talk telepathically. So you might have one person in the group who's communicating telepathically on behalf of this being while it's standing there. And apparently this type of telepathic communication is very unpleasant and very bad. It's not like angelic communication at all. You don't feel good while it's happening. The being does not treat you very well. It can often feel very intense, painful experience as you're going through this. So why in the world would they want to summon demons? Why in the world would anybody want to do this? Well, there's two opposite poles in the universe. There's good and evil. And if you think that the full extent of evil on Earth is manifested in Donald Trump, which is what the media has been trying to tell us ever since he began running in 2015, you've really missed the plot. This is 9 years now of the same story. Oh my God, he's so evil. Oh my God. Well, why? What happened? What happened? Is he summoning demons? No. Is he doing bloodletting rituals? No. Okay, so there's worse stuff that can happen. All right? He's probably not perfect. There's probably things that have happened that upset you. I get that. You know, it's a weird and interesting situation. However, there is a reality to the fact that there's an industrial complex. There's this media, pharma, industrial complex that's very real, and we've seen it manifest. And Michael's ultimate message, when I started to do these Michael Prophecies back in, 1996 is when they began, and then it was all meant to be unsealed starting in 2022. Took me 2 years to go through all this stuff every day. That's all I did, is work on these books. It was crazy. So when we get into this stuff about the negative, I want to let you know right off the bat, this is definitely not for children or for people who are depressed. If you have been through this type of trauma, you might not want to see all this, because I'm going to show you some artwork that indicates that I probably went through these things myself. And I'm going to try to keep it as non-traumatic as possible, but we're talking about the idea that UFOs that were owned by the people running General Electric and Disney World, they reverse engineered them. They had the time travel capability, probably were piloted by Greys, because humans don't like the time travel at all. So I was getting picked up. You read my book, Ascension Mysteries. I talk about all these cases over and over again where I was sleepwalking in the house. And I had all these dreams about cigar-shaped UFOs picking me up in my backyard. Well, that might not all be dreams after all. So it's a very interesting story, and I wanted to open up before we get too dark by talking about something that has totally blown my mind. I mean, I am literally in a state of shock after I read this morning. This just happened. Virgin Mary at Garabandal. Okay? And it's precisely identical to the Michael Prophecies in its message. So here's what I just found this morning, and I was blown away. The Garabandal apparitions are apparitions of Saint Michael the Archangel and the Blessed Virgin Mary that are claimed to have occurred from 1961 to 65 to 4 young schoolgirls in the rural village of San Sebastian de Garabandal in the Pina Sagra mountain range in the autonomous community of Cantabria in northern Spain. So right there, I mean, when this lady Jimena came up to me and told me about this, I didn't even know that Archangel Michael was included, but he's a major, major part of these visions. And again, the books that I just was given, and I had to spend 2 years assembling them and unsealing the prophecies, They're authored by Archangel Michael. I didn't even realize that there was a Mary apparition that involved Archangel Michael, but here it is. And there was strange stuff happening with these children. They manifested things in their mouth like communion. I guess it was some type of artwork or something that came out. Very weird stuff like that was going on. And it also ties back to that Old Testament thing where the angel tells whoever the visionary was that he had to eat the scroll and it'll taste like honey. So that was interestingly connected to that. But what really blew me away is what did the Virgin Mary and Archangel Michael say at Garabandal? Oh, another thing is that the children were doing weird stuff. They were leaning down on sharp rocks and not getting cut or bleeding or having any pain. There was a lot of weird miracle type of stuff going on. I've just started to crack this because I only read it this morning. But what I saw was so amazing because, again, Michael's message in these Archangel Michael books that came through me, the Michael Prophecies, is telling us that there's going to be a solar event that is not catastrophic, and it's mirrored in the Bible, it's mirrored in the Quran, it's mirrored in, as I said in the last show, Hindu prophecy, which would be the Samvartika fire. The Zoroastrian prophecy calls it the Frasho Kareti. It's all over the place. And the idea is that there's some type of energetic change. The Quran calls it the Day of Clarification. It's supposedly some type of major change in the whole way that our reality functions, and we get this glimpse of clarity. Well, wouldn't you know, Garabandal talks about this. So let's go back to that, because I am blown away by this. The visionaries reported receiving two messages, one directly from Blessed Virgin Mary, and the other from the Virgin Mary by way of Saint Michael the Archangel. So Michael was the channel, and he appeared. The first, revealed on October 18th, 1961, states, "We must make many sacrifices, perform much penance, and visit the Blessed Sacrament frequently." Now, I want to make this point too. The Virgin Mary apparitions are usually very Catholic. Michael's message in Michael Prophecies does not say that you have to be a Christian in order to receive the mercy and the blessing of God or the Creator, whatever you want to call it. It helps. It can help a lot because Christianity is probably the most accurate teaching without all the distortions that create religions and where people mess things up. In fact, I think these beings were trying to give us too much information, and they found out that people would take little pieces of it and miss the core, which is to be more loving and to recognize that there's only one infinite intelligence that actually made the universe. So again, this is going to sound very Christian, and you just don't take it too personally, but this is what it said. First, we must lead good lives. If we do not, a chastisement will befall us. The cup is already filling up, and if we do not change, a very great chastisement will come upon us. Now, this woman, Jimena, told me that the chastisement was a solar flash, that's in the prophecy of Garabandal. Well, like I told you, the solar flash shows up all over the place. Here's these children, they probably don't have a whole lot of education, and they're just channeling this stuff. They're seeing these apparitions. Nobody else could see it but them. But very strange things were happening. They had manifestations in their mouths. They had no pain. Really interesting things were going on, and this attracted a lot of people. It went from 61 to 65. So the chastisement literally is a solar flash. And as I have more time, and I keep on digging, I'm going to bring you more data that supports all this. So, this is the same exact message that Michael gave us, which is that we have now, since 1961-65, learned our lessons, and we have avoided the chastisement or the solar flash. We're now going to have a non-catastrophic ascension, but even during the time of the Edgar Cayce readings, we didn't know if that was really going to be what would occur or not. And there's really no way to tell, you know. This is stuff that's very strange, and again, when I realized that this Garabandal prophecy existed, I would have loved to have put it into Michael Prophecies, but I didn't actually unseal this until I broke out of my monastic solitude of 3 years and started to interact with the public, the people who love me, the people who want to see me. It was wonderful. Everybody's coming up to me. They're smiling. So many people are telling me that my work has had this huge impact on their lives, that they were going to commit suicide and that my work stopped them, that they didn't believe in God, and then they found out that God is real. They didn't understand what the UFOs really were. Turns out that there's angels and demons in these craft. As I've said in many other previous episodes, there's multiple examples of saucers in the Bible as being the craft of the good guys. And we also talked about the Fatima visitations in Portugal in 1917 that clearly showed a disk of dull silver that covered the sun, scared everybody half to death, and then created all these luminous, beautiful colors in the sky. And that appears to be a metaphor of this solar flash once again. Well, it looks like they came back, and in Garabandal they had to do even more, so they told us, yeah, there's going to be a chastisement if you guys don't change. Well, thank God we have, and we're going to avoid that. And so Garabandal tells us what's going to happen. It's unbelievable. It's exactly the same thing Michael is saying. The June 18th, 1965 apparition in which Conchita heard the second message was televised live on Spanish television. Isn't that amazing? Wow. Only Conchita Gonzalez, regarded by most devotees of Garabandal as the principal visionary, was able to hear this second message. But here it is. As my message, this is Archangel Michael talking now, or Virgin Mary through Archangel Michael, as my message of the 18th of October has not been complied with, you better listen, and as it has not been made known to the world, I am going to tell you this is the last one. Previously, my cup was filling, now it is brimming over. Many cardinals, bishops, and priests are following the road to perdition, and with them they are taking many more souls. Well, now we know there's a lot of really disturbing stuff about Catholic priests that has come out, and a lot of it involves children. So I think that's exactly what he's talking about. The road to perdition, Even less importance is being given to the Holy Eucharist. We should turn the wrath of God away from us by our own efforts to be more loving. If you ask his forgiveness with a sincere heart, he will pardon you. And this is true. Doesn't matter what you've been through. I mean, look at me. They're telling me I had this evil stuff happening to me. None of it ever happened in my waking life, but something was going on, for sure. I, your mother, through the intercession of Saint Michael the Archangel, wish to tell you that you should make amends. Ask for forgiveness. And, turn the wrath of God away from you by your own effort. In other words, the solar flash would have happened if too many of us were wicked, and by learning to live a more loving way, we're actually changing the physics of the Earth such that we don't have to have a pole shift and that we have a non-catastrophic ascension. That's exactly what this prophecy is about to describe. You are now being given the last warnings. Whoa, I love you very much and I do not want your condemnation. Ask us sincerely, and we shall grant your plea. Reflect on the passion of Jesus. Besides the two messages, the visionaries forecast a warning, a miracle, and a punishment if people do not correct their ways. The warning is described as a momentary stopping of time around the world, with all people then seeing the spiritual conditions of their souls and how they should amend their ways. This is absolutely mind-blowing. And the reason why is that this is exactly what's described in the Quran. It's almost the same wording, a momentary stopping of time around the world, with all people then seeing the spiritual condition of their souls. I mean, they almost quote it out of the Quran. It's basically the same thing. And that we now realize the Quran says that our souls are limitless and holy. So again, I don't want to quibble about the differences between religions, but I do believe that religions don't get started by accident. They get started because these angelic ETs show up, they make contact, it blows people's minds, miracles are happening like we see in these Virgin Mary apparitions. People write down stuff that they're hearing in their minds or that's being told to them out loud, and this then later turns into religious texts. And that appears to be what's going on. But again, this message right here is exactly the same thing that the same being, Archangel Michael, told us in Michael Prophecies. Time will cease. There's going to be this sudden blissful consciousness, and then we will see the true nature of our souls. But now with Garabandal, there's all these new details that I didn't have before. There's apparently going to be a time after we get this first glimpse before the big reckoning. It doesn't all happen at the same time. This is really weird. And so this is all new to me. The miracle will leave a permanent sign in Garabandal, which can be seen and photographed but not touched. Well, I'm waiting to see what that's going to be. That'll be fascinating. The miracle will occur between March and May. This is another really weird and fascinating thing, right? Because Michael pinpointed the date, the year, as 2025 in the Michael Prophecies. And Memorial Day, as far as I remember, falls in May. And the Alliance has now said they're going to do America's 250-year celebration in May 2025, which was one of the real nods to Michael Prophecies. It was mind-blowing. So the miracle will occur between March and May. Well, May 2025 is exactly when they're going to start the 250-year celebration of America. And I believe by then the cabal will have been exposed and defeated. So this is totally mind-blowing. The punishment or chastisement is conditional upon how humankind reacts to the preceding warning and miracle. Wow. So this is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So something happens where we go back to the way it was after this miracle. And this is now CatholicStand.com. You can go look at that link, and here's where I read this from. It was revealed to the visionaries at Garabandal that soon after the warning, the forces of darkness would mount campaigns to convince the world that this miraculous illumination of conscience, experienced simultaneously by the entire world, had nothing to do with God and could be explained away by science. Whoa! I've never heard this before. This morning is the first time I'd ever heard anything like this. That there's actually going to be some sort of very psychedelic event, which Michael calls in my books, or his books, the Michael Prophecies. Again, 7 for 70. I'm doing a great deal right now for limited time, so I want you to be able to get this affordably. And, it also helps me greatly because I only have like $9,000 in the bank right now, and if any emergency hits me, I'm done. So, thank you guys for helping me out. Anyway, it says that this will be debunked by science. They're going to say, no, had nothing to do with God. Everybody just kind of got weird for a while. We don't really know what this is. So I'd never heard that. In fact, I was thinking that the warning and the miracle were going to happen at the same time, but apparently that's not the case. The warning is what he's calling the first wave, but then people are going to be able to go back from that psychedelic consciousness temporarily and be like, well, wait a minute. What the hell was that? What happened? And I'd never, ever heard this before. So again, Michael unsealed this through me meeting Jimena from Chile and her telling me, oh my God, David, haven't you read Garabandal? I'm like, no. It's got the solar flash in. Okay, well, check it out. So people are going to try to debunk the first wave of ascension. This is all news to me just since this morning. Perhaps they will try to write it off as a group hallucination caused by a solar flare. Again, it's a solar flash, folks. Wow. Okay. Richard Dawkins and others are already laying that groundwork with the idea of, Darwinian evolution, skepticism, blah, blah, blah. Whatever they come up with, they will have a large audience willing to latch on to any explanation that does away with God. This is probably another reason why Michael wanted me to do all this in advance, so that when we all have this momentary trip out and we get this consciousness, I guess we're going to go back to kind of the way we were before. I thought it was just going to stay on, but apparently it doesn't. Apparently it flashes for a while, it's energized for a while, and then we kind of go back to conventional reality. Really weird. So yeah, people are going to try to say, oh, it's skeptical, it's just a hallucination. The sun did something strange. Everybody had a little bit of a, maybe they lost oxygen in their brain, or it'll be something like that. And all the while, Satan and his minions will be fanning the flames of their skepticism. That sounds about right. And even among the multitudes who are open to believing the truth of what they experienced, many of them will be ill-equipped about what they should do in response to it. So this is also really interesting, right? Even though there's going to be this breathtaking first wave of ascension, a lot of people won't really have the spiritual tools to understand what it was, what are they supposed to do, what does it mean for them, what insights did they carry back from this weird event that apparently is a solar flare. The sun's going to do something. But then we temporarily go back to conventional reality. And if you read more about Garabandal, it's only a year later, or maybe even a little less, it's within 1 year, that then there is another event, which is the miracle. So that would be like the second wave of ascension. And the second wave of ascension, I think, is where people start to have light body activation. There may be people that get it on this first wave, or maybe not. I'm not really sure. But if everybody can go back to being skeptical, then it probably, the light body stuff doesn't happen until what they call the miracle. And if we don't listen to this warning well enough, then we get a catastrophic ascension where the solar flash is actually going to cook the planet. That could be what happens. But again, Michael has said, we've learned our lessons. We don't have to go through this anymore. It's all going to be good. So this is very, very interesting, and I just found out about this today. So I'm very excited. If you'd like to find these books for yourself, if you'd like to hear what Michael has to say, go to thedisclosure.com. I forgot the 2 slashes there, but they should be. $70, man. That's about as good a deal as I can make for something that literally took probably 8 years of my life to write. 4 years back then, 4 years up front here now. Altogether, it's just a massive amount of work. And so I'm making it very approachable. We are going to get it out in print form in the future. I haven't had time to do that yet, but I did upgrade books 1 and 2. There's newer versions of them that are now on the site that are current as of like February of this year. And again, if you want to get this discount, you got to order the books only, not the one with the video, and then type in the code REVELATION. So, as I've been saying, we are going through this interesting process where there is a military uprising. It's from within the military and the intelligence community, and it is widespread. And it's going to come out through an official channel. In fact, what we're expecting is that there's going to be arrests. There's going to be some type of sudden uptick of warlike activity, these distressing black swan events. It could be financial. It could be the threat of nuclear war, some type of conflict escalation that gets everybody off of their butt and makes everybody realize, wow, we really are in trouble if we don't deal with this DS issue. So the Alliance, as I said, originally started to talk to us in 2017 October with these posts that involved the 17th letter of the alphabet, right? The letter Q. And so it was widely attacked by the media. Oh, this is a conspiracy. This is not true. But if you actually were reading all that stuff, there's almost 5,000 posts. They were giving out tons of information. And a lot of it was really, really bad and really, really dark. And now, based on my own assessment, they have transferred these posts over to this particular Twitter page called Shadow of Ezra. And so I would say that if nothing else, you really ought to be following these. And in fact, they're now getting millions of views. And I think that these videos I'm doing have had a lot to do with that, because a lot of times I was seeing them only not even breaking 10,000 before. But now some of these posts are getting over 1 million views. And again, we can't deal with reality by staying in denial. If you are in denial, if you don't want to look at the truth, it's going to hurt you. You can't live your life as an ostrich. You can, but if you put your head in the sand and you don't want to look at anything, you just get traumatized. I can't do it, I won't look. That's how atrocities happen. The galactic logos, the Christ, this cosmic consciousness that manifested in a human form as Jesus, is, according to the law of one, the creator of our galaxy. And everybody in this galaxy is going to look human. So that's why in John it says God created man in his own image. The original word God in the Aramaic is logos. So the logos created man and woman in its own image. The law of one explains that that's the human being form, the template of Christ that's in our galaxy. So therefore, yeah, Jesus showed up here, but it's not like salvation only occurs on Earth. It was the manifestation of our galactic creator. So God the Son is the galactic creator. God the Father is the universe. That's a very, very interesting thing. So again, Christianity has more depth than we thought. So if you hear about satanic stuff, if you hear about demons and it just freaks you out so much that you're like, I just can't even live in a world where this is true, I refuse to look at it, I'm out, then you're part of the problem. And we need to be able to have the spiritual faith, the spiritual fortitude to understand, number one, this is real, and number two, there is a path to freedom. There is a path to freedom in the oneness, in the Christ consciousness. And it's non-denominational. I believe that if you are a good person, you are tapping into the core of what made you. My perspective on all this has always been that the energy of the universe itself is alive and intelligent. DNA is a precipitate of intelligent energy, hence the work of Dr. Luc Montagnier, where he takes a tube of distilled water and then a tube of distilled water with DNA in it, and he energizes the tube with 7 hertz electrostatic frequency, the same thing the Earth gives off, and you cook it for 18 hours, and then, by God, the water that was just plain distilled water has DNA in it. Where the hell did that DNA come from? It comes from the background of quantum mechanics. The Earth's electrostatic frequency energizes the DNA in the other tube, and it actually causes hydrogen and oxygen molecules, which is what water is, to alchemically transmute into complex polysaccharides. Holy crap. So yeah, life is everywhere. Anytime you have liquid water on any planet, you're going to have life. And NASA has now said, after the Pettigura study in 2013, that there are 40 billion Earth-like planets in our galaxy. They probably all have life, and it probably all directs towards humans. Because again, the cosmic Christ, the galactic logos, engineers DNA to become human. And so a typical planet is going to have a biosphere that looks like ours for the most part, birds, fish, plants, animals, and then certain species will evolve into humans. But apparently, in the law of one, they say that's called investment, and different types of creatures in the biome can become humans. So you might have, fish people in a planet that's all oceanic. You might have people that look like they came from dogs, people that look like they came from cats. There are, frog people, all different kinds of stuff. And we have every different type of skin color in the ETs that we see. But probably the biggest shock of disclosure is going to be that most extraterrestrials are human. They are not aliens. Grays do occur. They're fairly common. And that would be more like a human that has evolved into larger eyes and a larger head. Their eyes aren't probably usually black. That may be some type of lens that's worn over the eye. If you remember the original Roswell fake video where they redid the Roswell autopsy in the mid-90s, they were pulling off those black things, and it was like a sunglasses that was over the eye, like a contact lens. So if these Greys taught Aleister Crowley how to summon demons, that became something that people began doing all over the world in these very occult circumstances where you actually see something show up. Well, the Alliance is now considering it a military necessity that we all have to learn about this, because you can't defend yourself against an enemy that you don't understand. You have to understand what's happening. So check this out. This is really disturbing. This is where, again, if you get easily triggered, you might not want to keep watching. In 29, let's zoom in on it, because what you're seeing here is a 3-minute, 11-second clip. I should probably check post 311. I haven't done that. But anyway, I'm just trying to get it all done as fast as I can here. Let's zoom in on the text. In 2019, investigative journalist Rich Marin testified to Senator Bernie Sanders about a planned coup by a fascist group called the Reich. And if you play the video there, if you play the audio clip, he says that this is associated with this 3-letter agency that we all know and love called the Company, that starts with a C. It's within that group that this Reich exists. Well, that's shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody. If you watch Moment of Truth, we talk about the Gehlen org, that this Nazi General Gehlen was brought over to America. They gave him a false identity. And then there was a lot of stuff that he started doing about these paramilitary operations, and the purpose was to create a global fascist takeover, which is also what it says in the Law of One. Very, very difficult material to comprehend. Revealing their plans in 2019, and he's got this documented, he recorded it, for a coronavirus pandemic, and how they were blackmailing people through Uncle Jeffy. Oh my God. Sanders' name keeps coming up a lot these days. So then you listen to the audio, and he's talking to Sanders on the phone, and Sanders is very nervous. He does not want to go up against the company. He does not want to go up against the Reich. He does not want to step into this satanic world. And then on April 28th, it got even more very, very disturbing, where they have a video of Manson, none other than Charles Manson, with a more normal-looking haircut. If you could see, he looks really sweaty and whatever, but it's not all curly and crazy like it was in the 60s. But he does this whole talk, and he talks about that he was apparently molested. And so he gets into very specific detail, and that kind of trauma for a weak-minded person might make them re-traumatize and then do the same thing to others, which is what happened, of course. Manson is responsible for these horrific, horrific murders while they were playing Helter Skelter by the Beatles, apparently, is what was going on. And so this was all intended to stop the hippie movement. I had multiple insiders tell me the Manson stuff was intentionally done. He was under mind control. He was programmed to do it. And the purpose was to stop all the momentum of Woodstock and try to, terrorize everybody. He did a pretty darn good job. But this is what he actually said. Eleanor Roosevelt, the First Lady of the U.S. from 33 to 45, during her husband, President FDR's 4 terms in office, was accused of sacrificing and drinking in the 1940s. I'm not going to say all the rest, but you can read it. And then they give you a very, very creepy picture of her where her teeth are stained from all the smoking, and she's got this big dark ring under her eye on the left there. She's got this very, very creepy toothy grin. And so clearly the Alliance wants us to learn about this, and it's got 500,000 views at the time I looked at it. So this is becoming very, very popular. Now, again, this is his own words, Manson's own words. People, oh, well, he's not credible. Yeah, but he did say these things, and we don't know for sure that he's lying. They came out just a couple days ago with another one that was even more disturbing in some ways about generational abuse. A Jewish woman shared with Oprah Winfrey that she was born into a family that worships the devil. Now, of course, again, I'm not anti-Semitic at all. I think this whole college thing is disgusting. And I am glad that this is finally being stood up to. I mean, if you're anti-Semitic, you don't get it. That has nothing to do with what's going on. I grew up in upstate New York. Half of the people I knew were Jewish. I've only recently been even trying to think about, like, okay, who did I know who was Jewish? Oh, well, that person. It didn't even matter. And so to try to denigrate a whole category of people because some of them got in trouble is nonsense. But within Judaism, there are extremist factions, just like there are in every religion. There's extremist Islam, where they want to do jihad and they want to torture and carve people apart. There's extremist forms of Christianity, where they get all, end time oriented and think that if you're not a Christian, you're going to burn in hell. I don't believe that at all. In fact, again, Michael's message is that we've all internalized the basic message of Christ enough that we're not going to have to go through catastrophic earth changes. Thank God. But anyway, this is what it says. She was born into a family that worships the devil, engages in rituals involving babies, you can read the rest, with a family lineage tracing back to the 1700s. She also mentions that she believes other families partake in similar practices, and the part I highlighted at 50 seconds, it says, I've blocked out. She doesn't remember most of what happened to her. So hypnosis is one of the basic technologies of how this apparently works. So, again, I don't have time to go through all of the latest Ezra posts, but they are amazing. There was one that came through a few days ago that was a video that was highly inspiring, where they say there's only one country left. They gave us a lot of detail about what's going on with Israel. I don't think Israel's going to be a problem much longer. There's going to be a change and the war is going to end. And we're already seeing all of it stacking up that way. If you want to know more, again, please go to Twitter and look for this channel, and you'll learn everything about it. And it appears that that the Mossad is doing their own internal work, which includes wet work, and they're taking out people at the top levels of the government. They're doing investigations. They're bringing in top people, so this is not going to stay this way, and I'm very happy about that. In no way do I want these atrocities to continue. I never have. The whole thing has been freaking me out from the beginning, and I'm so glad that it appears to be coming to an end. So, when I read whistleblower testimony on this group, the so-called Illuminati, my understanding was that they are essentially using hypnosis that was started by, as we're going to hear, in the 1940s by Cleve Baxter. He figured this out. So there's one way to do this where people don't remember anything because they go through conventional hypnosis, but then there's also an alien technology, and the alien technology involves the use of UFOs. If you get taken on a trip with a UFO and you get taken to a remote location for, let's say, several hours, they can bring you back to the moment in time that you left, and it appears that no time has elapsed, and you don't remember anything. All you can get is a dream. So I talked about this at my weekend conference. I said, there's probably people who have been through this for positive reasons, because a lot of these ships that crash are angelic positive ETs using flying saucers, like in the Bible, and like in all the Fatima visions that we've seen, and the Virgin Mary apparitions and the Archangel Michael apparitions. You got your flying saucer, and what could happen in the case of the good beings is that if you need a vacation, they might take you to the Hawaii planet, which does exist. There's a planet near us where the whole planet is like Hawaii. There's lots of cool human ETs hanging out there. They could take you to the Hawaii planet. You might spend 5 years on vacation, and then they bring you back to the moment you left. Another thing that could happen is, let's say you accidentally die, and they didn't plan on you dying yet, and your timeline requires you to be alive. They can take your dead body. They have alien technology, or extraterrestrial technology. They probably don't like the word alien. They have extraterrestrial technology that our government got their hands on, where even if your whole body was burned and all they had is your elbow, they could zap you on the med bed, and over the course of a day, your whole body will regrow out of that elbow. All the burnt stuff goes away, and the body over time, the body grows back in full, and then once it's fully ready to be restored, you suddenly reanimate into your body and you're conscious again. So Jesus was able to do this just with Lazarus. Of course, he raised Lazarus from the dead. Apparently, the ability to do this is technological in nature, and it exists for all these angels. So let's say you died and you weren't supposed to. Well, this is what happened to Ray Stanford, the author of the Fatima Prophecies. And I stayed at a farm with a man named John in Virginia Beach, and John was actually Ray Stanford's close friend. And Ray Stanford apparently channeled the beings of Fatima. I don't know if it was real or not, but one of the weird things that John personally told me is that Ray Stanford was driving in fog at a high speed, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a multi-car pileup. There's a multi-car... Let me drink water. Multi-car pileup. He doesn't have any time to hit the brakes. His car smashes right into this multi-car pileup. There's a bright flash of light. He doesn't feel any impact. And all of a sudden, his car is on the other side of this massive multi-car pileup, and he's alive. But the strangest part of the story is that all of the electronics in his vehicle were fried. So the positive angelic beings might have created a portal around his car, allowing him to fly through the multi-car pileup without dying, but then as a consequence of this technology, it fried all of his electronics. Or maybe he did die and they restored him. So I do believe there are cases of people dying and being restored by this advanced technology. And again, this is all stuff that happens with time travel. If you died, they can bring you back to before it happened, and the only way you're going to remember your death is in a very traumatic dream. So this all goes back to some Project Camelot data that's very amazing, where Nikola Tesla built a turbine that creates anti-gravity, but when you use this technology, you get amnesia. You can't remember anything that happened on the trip, and I guess that's a basic function of all UFOs. So this testimony was produced by Ralph Ring with Project Camelot. I think it was roughly around 2008 or thereabouts that this came out. And I want to read you from the Ralph Ring transcript on Project Camelot's website. So Otis T. Carr was the father of the elevator. He was Tesla's protege. And Otis T. Carr is the one who built a flying saucer called the OTC-1 using Tesla turbines that create anti-gravity, free energy, and time travel all at the same time. So this is really interesting because now this is Ralph Ring's personal testimony of being there with Otis T. Carr and Otis T. Carr giving them a ride on the ship. But then he says, wait a minute, you guys aren't going to remember anything about what happened during this UFO ride. You're only going to get dreams. So check this out. This is what Ralph Ring had to say. So Otis Carr said, okay, boys, get out of the craft and see what's going on. By this point, they've already taken the ride on the UFO. I'm skipping over a lot of stuff. Didn't it work, or what happened? He said, come on then, get out of the craft, because they didn't feel any sense of movement. They just thought they were sitting in the same place. We got out and we were downrange 10 miles from where this aquamarine area was. This is one of the strangest things of all. There was a globe in the middle of the ship. It had a rainbow spectrum light that reflected on the round walls inside. So you saw red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. And then Otis Carr, like remote viewing, programmed their destination, not as we're going to go to, the sewage treatment plant in Fort Meade, Maryland, but go to the aquamarine. And that's similar to remote viewing coordinates, right? It's just random stuff. Go to the aquamarine. So people visualized aquamarine inside the ship, and then the rainbow colors turned to aquamarine. And then as soon as that happened, the trip was over and they were at their destination, but nobody felt any inertia or movement at all. So that's what's going on. We got out and we were now downrange 10 miles from the aquamarine area. He said, all right, pick up rocks and put them in your pocket. And you'll see why this is important in a minute. Take some grass or whatever you can find. No, not that kind. I'm already done with that. Some tumbleweed, whatever you can find to get acquainted with where you're at. When you get back, you're not going to remember any of this. Whoa, that's the whole point. You're not going to remember a darn thing. So we had people put grass in their pockets because otherwise they're not even going to believe that they ever took a trip. Your mind is not capable of remembering. As soon as the flow of gravity in your pineal gland changes or is interrupted, you automatically go into a dream space. And this is also why when UFOs contact people, you don't hear birds, you don't hear sounds of animals, there's no noise, because you're actually now in between time and there's no sound. It gets very, very quiet. And then you don't remember anything. You're not going to remember anything when you get back. So Ralph says that was the gist of the whole thing. So we did stuff our pants with dirt and rocks and grass, and then we got back on board the ship. And then makes the sound of a fast movement. We were back. We got out of the craft. We went into debrief. Sorry, we got getting too excited. We got out of the craft. We went into debriefing and then said, well, what happened? It didn't work, did it? He says, you don't think it worked? Look in your pockets. And so we looked in our pockets, and here's these dang rocks. I had grass stains. I had everything. And I said, oh my God. Gary Voss was interviewing him. He says, you didn't have any memory of your trip? He said, no memory at all. I only gradually remembered it later on, being there and picking up the rocks. It was just like, Voss says, like it was a dream or something. Ralph Ring says, yes, like it was a dream, exactly. You advance your imagination to a certain point, and then you would forget about it. And so I thought, this is the most incredible experience I've ever had. And he said, no, it's simple. Your brain is there to operate your body. You're in a vessel when you're here in third density Earth. This is an illusionary vessel that people don't realize because we keep creating this in microseconds. From 1 second to the other, these shutters are opening and shutting, creating all this reality that you see around you, but none of it really exists. Isn't that fascinating? It's all spirit, it's all energy, but we are the ones creating it. And he was blowing us away. Otis Carr explained it. He said, well, it's simple. People don't realize that man and woman, humans in a sense, created time. In essence, time doesn't really exist. Time only exists when we create it, which gives us a beginning and an end to something. That's what we call time. But in a greater reality, there is no time. We pegged our trip at about 15 minutes, but he says that in our time, we were only gone a few seconds. We just went outside of time and then we went back. The 15 minutes disappeared. I mean, it's what you call it. What you create is what it is. So this was absolutely mind-blowing information that just totally changed my reality in every possible way. Because now, in February of 2022, Michael tells me I was in a space program. Michael tells me that that I experienced sexual trauma in the program, and that, well, we'll get into that because I'm going to read you those quotes. I had no memory of any of this stuff at all. And all I had were lots and lots of dreams. As a kid, I had dreams about being eaten by monsters. And so monsters were very real to me as a child because I'd had these terrifying monster dreams where like my hand is getting eaten or I'm being killed in different ways. Lots of really, really horrifying stuff. And so some of my experiences in the secret space program were bad, but then I had many experiences as well with positive angelic human ETs that first showed up as Obi-Wan Kenobi after I saw Star Wars in 1977. So that whole idea is one way in which hypnotic amnesia can be created. If you get a UFO and you have that technology, you can take somebody, in Ralph Ring's case, it was only 15 minutes, but it could be years. And even going back to the original book by Michael Relf called The Mars Records, he was talking about the 20 and back concept back in, I guess it was the 1990s. And so I've heard from other insiders that 20 years is the longest that they are allowed to take you anywhere, which is actually one cycle of Jupiter and Saturn conjunction. Up to 20 years, you could be taken somewhere else. You could be working. You could grow into adulthood from being a child. You have a 20-year experience. You do this whole tour of duty, and then the ship brings you right back to the moment you left. And it's perfectly seamless. And all you're going to have now are these amazing dreams that don't make any sense to you because it happened in what Michael calls a parallel lifetime. So that's one way in which somebody could torture you and make you go through Satanism, and there'd be no way to ever know that it happened except that you have these really, really dark, horrifying dreams. How in the world could you prove something like that is true? Well, we'll get to that. So that's one way, the extraterrestrial way. And again, if humans got a hold of this technology, I don't know how they get you to wake up in the middle of the night and pick you up. I don't really understand a lot of this stuff, but I know it was happening to me. I know that over and over again, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I would get dressed, I'd pack my book bag, and I wouldn't even look at the clock. It was like I was under hypnosis. And then I have now had deliverance. All that stuff has gone away. I am in no risk of being taken. There's no satanic connections anymore because I actually received redemption. And you can get deliverance. These Christian ETs will heal everyone, including the people who are in this cabal. If you've done the darkest stuff, if you yourself participated in murder, it doesn't matter. God or Christ, whatever you want to call it, is a God of forgiveness. And you will be redeemed. That's what we're all going through. So you don't have to be afraid of the universe. You don't have to be afraid of the good guys. If you were stuck in this group, the group tries to make you very cynical about Christianity. They want to criminalize it, actually. But everybody has a path to full redemption. I do believe that. And I just don't want to get too religious or Bible thumping in terms of how I talk about it. That way I can include more people. So that's one way in which people could bring you into a reality where you don't remember anything, but then another way gets back to Cleve Baxter. So this is the book where he disclosed his work with plants, where he hooks them up to a polygraph, and like you see in the graph on this page, it was right at the moment that he wanted to burn the leaf of the plant and took out a match and burnt the leaf that the plant began screaming. That sudden spike that you see in the red line over towards the right is right at the moment where he was burning the leaf. And the plant didn't stop screaming until the leaf went away. Now, what was he measuring? The electrical activity in the leaves. That's it. So when a human is screaming, And when you're interviewing them in a lie detector test, if they're having this internal stress, it shows up as their electrical activity getting much more crazy, and that's how they tell if you're telling a lie. But the other thing, besides that very fascinating consciousness factor with plants being able to read our minds, and plants are screaming when they know that we're going to burn them, yes. Yes, they do. They don't want to be hurt. They're aware of what's going on. They're aware of our thoughts. This was a stunning scientific discovery. But there was something else. Cleve Backster had also studied hypnosis. And he actually walked into a high-ranking military official's office. He asked the secretary if she would be willing to allow him to hypnotize her, and she said yes. He put her into hypnosis. Then he asked her to go and take out a highly classified document from the file cabinet. And she did so, and she brought it back to him. And then he stuck it in his briefcase. He closes the briefcase, and then he gives her a post-hypnotic suggestion that says, when I count to 10, you will not remember anything that has happened, and you will not even remember whether I hypnotized you or not. 10, 9, 8. You're becoming awake now. 7, 6. And he does this whole thing. She wakes up, and she doesn't have any memory of getting the classified document. Again, when you're under hypnosis, you're very suggestible. You don't really have the ability to say no most of the time. And that would be something great for people who want to abuse other people, especially kids, because you don't really have the ability to say no. So then, Cleve Backster takes this classified document, goes into the officer's quarters and says, now, how do you think I got this? And the officer gets all pissed off and angry and, you're not supposed to have this. This is crazy. You can read about it in this book again, Primary Perception. You're not supposed to have this. This is crazy. Do you want to know how I got it? Well, absolutely, because you're going to be court-martialed. You know, you're going to be in trial here for stolen classified documents. He said, sir, with all due respect, I believe that national security required me to do this because everybody in the military needs to know that this could happen so that we can take proper countermeasures. Well, what happened? He said, I used hypnosis. I asked your secretary if she'd let me hypnotize her. She said yes. When she was under hypnosis, I had her go get the documents. And then I told her in hypnotic suggestion she wouldn't remember anything, and she didn't. So I propose that this was when it all got very deep black and Cleve Backster was no longer involved, and they became incredibly excited because you can hypnotize people, you can have them go through prolonged experiences, and they won't remember anything as long as you do post-hypnotic suggestion properly. So this, I believe, is how most of the people who are the victims of this horrific, evil cult go through it. I have spoken to people who are very likely candidates, without getting too specific. Yeah, you know, they probably were in this thing. They probably had satanic stuff happening to them, da-da-da. But they don't remember anything. All they have is these night terrors. So one person I spoke to recently, who probably did go through this, all she had was just horrific nightmares every night when she was a teenager. And no memory of anything that actually happened. So in a way, I think this is more merciful. The way they do these ceremonies, everybody's wearing robes and masks, and that means that if you have a dream, you're not going to pick up any faces. Even if you remember your dream, you just see these scary images, and you're like, I don't know what the heck this stuff is. So there's no faces involved. And again, Chris Beskar's briefing is that these are evil aliens, Draco-reptilians, greys, insectoids, and they do this on planet after planet after planet. The technology is nearly foolproof. They can pick you up in a UFO. They can do crazy stuff to you. You're not going to remember. You're only going to have dreams. They can use Cleve Backster-style hypnosis on you. You're not going to remember. You're only going to have dreams. I think it's actually pretty rare that the people involved in this group do remember anything. But another thing that Chris told me that most of the whistleblowers do not say is that you can get out. I got out in 1986 because I was ungovernable. I started, taking things over, grabbing a gun, holding people at gunpoint, saying, get me the F out of here. I'm done. I'm out of here. Stuff like that. I was very insubordinate. I was a sassy boy. and I did not like what was happening, and I got myself out. I said, put me back in the life that I had. I don't want any of this stuff, and I don't care if I ever remember anything. I'm done. Now, how many people would go through the kind of thing that happened to me? Probably not very many. I would say probably only a few thousand. How many people are in what we could call the cabal? Maybe a few million in America. How many of those people remember anything that they had happen to them? Probably less than half. I think there are some people who are consciously aware of it because they have to participate in the media, in the music industry, in Hollywood, in big finance, big pharma, whatever they're doing. There are people who get brought into it, and I feel very bad for those people because I'm really happy that I hardly remember anything. But I do have all these little bits and pieces that I can find to tug on. So now I want to talk about how Michael revealed this parallel life trauma to me. It happened on May 22nd, 1997. I was unsealing this in February of 2022. And honestly, I'm not scared now, but when this first happened, I got very, 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 very freaked out. I'm in the middle of the winter. I'm at home alone. Satanic beings picked me up and did horrible things to me, and humans that were participating with them in some weird underground military base or maybe even off planet. How do you even explain this? How do you even make any scientific case for this? So I want to show you, first of all, Michael has been giving me all these prophecies by this point. I've had tons and tons of incredible information coming through. And it's like, well, how do I process what he says here? So this is what happened. This is from May 22nd, 1997, as I said. This was the headline that I put in later. Physically killed, beginning at age 5. The killer had begun my physical killing at age 5. What the hell does that mean? And then I was thinking about, because I can think to a certain degree as I'm getting the words and listen to them and respond. I said, oh, this must be the out-of-body experience that I had when I was 5 years old, which I talked about before. I showed you my pajamas. And then there was a disturbing image on the front of the pajamas. We'll get to that in a minute. I saved my pajamas because I was so blown away that I had floated out of my body, which is a typical alien abduction scenario. So I said, oh, well, if somebody was killing me, was that when I had my out-of-body experience? And then this is what they said. No, those are two different things. So wait a minute. And then the whole rest of the context from later in the same day, you're about to see, Michael says I was in an extraterrestrial space program. So clearly they're telling me that I was being killed in this program. And then Chris, the previous September, had said that they have the technology in Majestic, in the cabal, whatever you want to call it, where they can reanimate a dead body. So why wouldn't these sickos be killing children and then reanimating them? Well, apparently that's what was going on. So this very, very much freaked me out, folks. It's not like I just sat back and said, oh, wow, that's cool. No, I got very, very freaked out. I was being killed? You mean those dreams that I had as a kid where I'm being destroyed and my hand is getting eaten was real? Oh my God. All these weird, and then I started to think about this art that I had done, these weird drawings I had done. Maybe there's something to that. So then they say, David has worked strongly with our extraterrestrial space program. This was in the interview I did later that day with Skip Weatherford, a hypnotherapist. I got very deep in trance. Whoa! So this is exactly like what Corey and I were talking about in Cosmic Disclosure. This is only one vehicle of exploration that we have available. By and large, we now need him to pull his weight in that. So then Skip says, do you have a name that we can call you by? And Michael did not want to reveal his name because I would have, if I'd known it was Christian, I would have ran from it. I wouldn't have walked, I would have ran from it. So he doesn't give the name yet. He wasn't going to say Michael at this point. So he punts and he says, well, I am the one who shall remain nameless. Then he says, David is one of us, meaning I'm like an ET soul. That's the wanderer thing I've talked about many times. And a lot of you watching probably are. David's emotions have been juxtaposed against the emanations of misery. And it is my knowledge that he has had a hard time with this. Well, yeah, if you're being physically killed starting at age 5, that's how old you are when these sickos decide, yeah, let's just start taking the boy and having monsters eat him, and then, or we'll kill him satanically, we'll put him on a table, we'll do a ritual ceremony, we'll do all the, horrific stuff, the chanting, the dagger, stab him, kill him. He's terrified, he dies, then we bring him back to life. Let's do it again. Because every time they do that, they can create a new partition in your personality. So it's like programming a computer. If you kill somebody and they come back to life, they actually reincarnate into their own body with a new soul or a new personality, and then they can program that one. And so that's how this works. And again, Michael, through many years now, has gotten me to reintegrate these fragments, to cast out demons, to have deliverance. And I really think getting off of drugs was the final step, which I'm now doing. So yeah, emanations of misery, absolutely. And it's my knowledge he's had a hard time with this. Woo, we got 5,908 viewers live right now. Thank you, everybody. 6,000 people. The experiences of his plane would be highly irrelevant to most people on Earth. You can probably find those people in the comments right now. I'm just saying. Nobody wants to believe this is true. It's so esoteric. But, nonetheless, he then says, it is the age of enlightenment that is upon us, forming a greater understanding. There will be a reconciliation of the trials and desires of the human experience. We have great trouble with David's fears. They get in the way. And then Skip says, does he have a rebellious fear? And I think he already knew this, because I am very rebellious. And then they said, David has had much experience with fear, energy, and forces. We have to constantly keep and maintain his focus. Why would they say much experience with fear, energy, and its forces? Well, if somebody keeps killing you and bringing you back to life, again, we already saw with the Tesla technology, this is totally plausible. Put the grass in your pockets, because otherwise you're not going to remember anything. And they only did it for 15 minutes, but this could be, you could get tortured and killed more than once before they bring you back. And when you come back, in my case, I would have a high fever. I would have geometric hallucinations. I would be remembering memories of this weird parallel lifetime that was like a lucid dream almost, like I could just remember the gist of it. Some of it was horror, and some of it was this great feeling of being around Archangel Michael and other angelic Elohim human ETs. So he has had much experience with fear, energy, and forces. Yeah, the whole point is, this is real. This stuff actually did happen to me. The physical killings began at age 5. Wow. And I'm here to tell you that I lived through it all, and I'm still living a happy life. So it is possible to go through something this horrible and have a complete restoration of your life, which is great. You know, nobody is ever lost. So this is where it really gets crazy. Look at this. If I understand it correctly, would it be of value to balance David's bodily energies? And they say, we perceive that there is a great deal of trauma in his red chakra, the sexual chakra, which you would perceive as being at the sacral base of the spine. There we have a repression of sexual feelings and urges, and they're about to explain why. There has been repeated sexual wounding. It is the memory of this which has bled through, and I think bloodletting was involved because I was being killed. I mean, this is what I remember in my dreams, and why David is so solitary in his experiences now. Now, I have to tell you that when this came through, I could not believe it. I said, what in the hell are they talking about? Sexual wounding? I have never been, nobody laid a finger on me. My parents were angelic compared to the stuff that you hear about. Nobody ever molested me at all. There has never been anything, and I believe me, I understand repressed memory syndrome. I understand how people get these memories back. If something like this had happened to me by anybody that I knew in school or in my waking life in any normal capacity where I wasn't under hypnosis or something, I absolutely would have remembered it by now. Nothing ever happened. I didn't even know what sex was. I had no idea what it was until maybe about 6th or 7th grade, you know, and even then I had some confusion about what was going on. There just had never been anything like this. But again, as I said, Cleve Baxter demonstrated that there can be hypnosis done where people don't remember anything. That information immediately went to groups like the company, and they're using it. And so the people who went through this, probably a lot of them are never going to remember a darn thing. They're just going to have a really hard time with being sexual, which has also been my case, as I said last weekend. I don't want to go into all the detail because it's traumatic, but you know, my relationships have not really been physical. Most of the time, it's just a short amount of time, and then I start to have difficulty. and it doesn't it doesn't make it fun to have a relationship, because I just got overwhelmed. I mean, with my first girlfriend, the first time I made out with my first girlfriend in college, and she was Japanese, I started to feel sick, and I was very much in love with her. I thought she was beautiful. My heart was open to her, but as soon as I started getting physical, I felt like I was going to throw up. I had a very, very hard time with the whole process, and that has unfortunately been consistent. I have to feel very safe. I have to feel very stable. I can't just do it. It's got to be like, it's got to all be right, and I hope that I have healed enough from this that in the future it'll be different, but that's the way it's always been. And it's probably why people didn't stick around either. I mean, it's not your fault. It's just he's got trauma and there's something going on that he doesn't understand. Okay, so how would you get repeated sexual wounding? Like, what in the hell would happen? How could this possibly have happened to me? And what in the heck are they talking about with an extraterrestrial space program? So at the time, when this came through back in 97, I just immediately threw it away. I said, well, that's just BS. I don't know what the heck this stuff is. I'll keep doing the readings, but yeah, I mean, I've never had sexual trauma. Obviously, if it was, I would remember it, right? And I don't know what the heck they're talking about extraterrestrial space program. That doesn't make any sense. So then, when I unsealed all this stuff in 2022, at the same time I hear, well, here's Ghislaine in Disney World in 1983, a year before I went there. So I started to go back through my old papers, and now in 2022, I'm like, well, sexual wounding, ritual abuse, bloodletting, like space program, what in the hell is going on here? Is there any evidence that would actually say that this is what happened to me? And the answer is absolutely yes. So now I'm going to take you through some of this. Some of it is very disturbing. I will acknowledge that. So again, if you've been hanging on, if any of this triggers you, I would ask you to either just stop watching the show or come back later. And in the meantime, just, I'm going to try to make it as enjoyable as possible, non-traumatic as possible. But I do think you need to see this stuff. So repeated sexual wounding, memories bleeding through, and why I became solitary, repressing my sexual feelings. So the first one that I want to show you is a document. I couldn't believe that I actually got this, but this is a creepy as you-know-what proof that I made a visit to Disney World to meet with the executives because my grandfather and my father were both working at the General Electric main plant in Schenectady, and they were working with the group within GE that was making the animatronics for Disney World. So I'm going to show you a document of my father's boss talking about our trip to Disney World. And I couldn't have faked this. I mean, I guess I could, but I have the original. We can forensically date it. It'll backdate to 1984. It's not fake. I did crop the header out and the names out because I don't want the families of these people to be affected as much as possible. But here we go. Check this out. This is a real document. I have it right in my papers here. March 8th, ironically, that's my birthday, 1984. Mrs. Martha Wilcock, that's my mother. I blocked out our address, Scotia, New York, 12302. And then on the bottom right, I want you to look at that before we do anything else. And it clearly says General Electric. At the top, it says the Magazine of Modern Industrial and Commercial Electrical Practices. Again, I cropped out the header so that it's not so easy for people to, try to dig through all this crap. So here's what he actually said. Dear Martha, it has been my wish for a number of years, because remember, my dad had this job before I was even born. So I was born into both of my father and grandfather working for Disney World in Schenectady, building their animatronics, and my dad was working on a magazine for the other parts of their business. It has been my wish for a number of years to have the opportunity to be able to personally introduce you, along with 9-year-old Michael and 12-year-old David, wink, wink, or 11-year-old David, to the members of our editorial council. As the plans moved forward to hold our recent council meeting at Walt Disney World on March 1st and 2nd, this seemed to be an unusually splendid occasion. So he said, it's been my wish for a number of years, and he specifically mentions the 2 children. Well, so do you think that the editorial council of Disney World, oh, well, they're just like Boy Scouts. They didn't do anything. They're totally normal, No. Ghislaine was there in 1983, a year before this. So these people are in it up to their eyeballs. And very likely, in addition to building animatronics, they build tunnels where they can run people through, and there's people that are being trafficked at these locations. This is now being widely accused. Okay, well then, nothing appears to have happened to me, right? But then my family was very, very involved. Very involved. And then you and your family came down with a terrible case of intestinal flu. Oh, how sad and how coincidental, right? It's just got to be a coincidence that we all got sick when we went down there, which led to my mother being bedridden the entire time. She couldn't leave the hotel that we had at Disney. And so it was just Dad swilling on kaopectate, and my brother and me. We had it to some degree, but my parents had it much worse. Now, it's possible that this was caused because the subconscious, maybe my parents knew on some level that terrible things were happening to their son David, and maybe they didn't want that to happen, but consciously they don't know. And so getting sick was a way to try to cancel the trip, which would have been a great idea. If we'd canceled the trip, that would have been a great idea. But instead, I had to go through this. And so their souls were trying to stop this from happening, I believe, by inviting this illness. But Dad was, a hero, and he got me in there anyway. He was very sick, but he drank kaopectate the whole day, which is an anti-diarrhea medication. And we went through this. And so your family comes down with a terrible case of intestinal flu. It was further disappointing to learn that it was only possible for you to visit Epcot and the Magic Kingdom for just a few hours on Saturday. Your dear Don, that's my dad, advised that it is his hope to be able to make another family visit sometime in the future. I'm sure they would love that, wouldn't they? Let's bring in those children, man. And they say, we very much missed you. It gets creepier and creepier. He writes all this stuff. Why is this letter so long? It is my wish to have you know that we very much missed you. We missed your kids, right? And we are hoping that you will feel much better very soon. It continues to be my hope to have this special experience. It continues to be my hope to have this special experience of being able to personally introduce you to our editorial council. As you know, I have a super regard for Don. We work so closely together on the magazine that it is like having him as my brother. It would not have been possible to develop the current posture of the magazine without his dedication and skill. So reading between the lines, what is this special experience that they wanted me to have, that they wanted us to have? There could be a lot of stuff that they're not saying in here because I believe it was very, very evil. And he says they want to have a special experience and personally introduce you to our high-ranking editorial council, which probably includes Ghislaine and everybody else. I'm looking forward to a future special occasion. I'm looking forward to a future special occasion that will permit you to become acquainted with our distinguished editorial council. Very best regards, yada yada, General Electric. Okay, well, we've only lost like 100 people, so you guys are tough. You're hanging in there. And thank you for hanging with me. I had a hard time going through these slides before. Now it's gotten easier. But again, the reason I showed you this is not to do anything except to give you proof that I went to Disney World with the editorial council, with the highest ranking people, and they're talking about having special occasions, and they sincerely wish. I mean, the letter goes on and on. It's this rambling screed of like, please bring your children back. Bring them back to us. We'd love to do this again and have a very special experience. So before I left Disney World, I was in a meeting, as I said in my books, where I was surrounded by all the top executives in a huge round room. There's about maybe 50 people in there, all in a big ring. And all it was just windows all the way around. And then my dad's boss handed me this puzzle that said, if we can dream it, we can do it, and it had a futuristic city on it. I found images of this puzzle, which you're about to see, which is another form of proof that I did not make this up, okay? So I had already been given the puzzle because, they had just built Epcot Center in 1983. It had just come out. It was new. They were very proud of expanding the whole thing, and this puzzle represented what Epcot was about. I had no idea there was anything weird going on. I thought Epcot was amazing. It was a fun experience for me. I went on all the rides. You know, I had no idea that anything weird was going on at all. However, for whatever reason, I mean, my father's boss had been a jerk. I remember that at one point he shook my brothers and my hand. Each of us, we got a handshake from him that was like crushing. It was like breaking my hand. And then he took both of us and he put us up in the birch tree. And we're crying and screaming and he was just laughing. So I felt terrified. Both my brother and I are like looking at each other, screaming and crying and terrified because he put us like 8 feet above the ground on this branch in a tree after he crushed our hands with the handshake. And it was very, very painful, by the way, way beyond what you should ever think is appropriate to do to a child. So why would this guy hurt us? Why would he put us in the tree? Why would he laugh while we're screaming and crying? And then he wants us into this special meeting at Disney World, right? So I think on some level I knew this guy was a jerk. The other part of me in my subconscious where these things were happening hated this man very profoundly. And so when he gave me the puzzle, I was a sassy little boy. Are you ready for this? I rejected the puzzle. And pretty soon everybody started laughing because I said to him, you know, well, my brother and I already received these puzzles and they're great, but I'm sorry I can't accept this. Would you please give this to other children at Disney World instead, because we already have one. And so there's this really, really weird, awkward silence. Ghislaine, whoever else was there, they all just got really weird and awkward. And then my dad goes, well, there goes my job. Total Homer Simpson. Everybody just freaking busted out laughing. I didn't even know why they were laughing. And sure enough, my dad got fired within less than a year. Or laid off, as they called it, but that's the same as fired. So I had no idea what was going on, but, you know, in order to further bolster my story, I looked it up, and you can still buy this puzzle. So the very puzzle that I rejected can still be bought online. This was one version of it on WorthPoint that's already sold. Epcot GE Horizons 1983 puzzle, If We Can Dream It, We Can Do It. It's in great shape for its age. So here's up close. Now, so this was also weird too. Like it very much implies that they were involved in a secret space program of some kind, because you have this Jetsons-looking futuristic city, and there's people looking at it, and it's got an obelisk in the background on the left, as you can see. There's pyramids off to the far left. That's pretty weird. There's all this strange stuff in this image if you really look at it. And then if you look at the bottom, it says, If We Can Dream It, We Can Do It, Horizons 1983, GE. So there's a better image of the label on the side, okay? So, yeah, karma will grab you. Like, don't have bad karma because you could get nailed. So, again, there's the child sticker, which was somebody just stuck it on there. And you can see the obelisk under the sticker. And now look at, these are cigar-shaped flying craft, which is exactly the same craft I had in my dreams that were picking me up. They were also cigar-shaped. It's on the box. So my guess is, just putting it together, what Michael told me and what the puzzle was, that these people at Disney were working with evil extraterrestrials that taught them how to summon demons, that were getting them to do ritual magic, and they were going around and making these puzzles to illustrate what they were already working on. If we can dream it, we can do it. They already had these ships at that point. And here's another detailed view of the ships up close. And then this weird futuristic city. Also notice there's a 4-way cross around the sun, which is their symbol. That's another thing that's in there. Now we're going to zoom in for even more detail. That's about as high fidelity as I can get right now. There's crystal shafts, crystal towers. It's all very interesting. And, of course, the same craft that I was getting picked up in. So this is really, really weird. And then, again, on the side, it says, If We Can Dream It, We Can Do It, 1983. This is the other side, Walt Disney Productions. So yeah, I believe that this puzzle reflected that they were working on a classified project. And it's fascinating because, you know, all of these things are not conclusive evidence, but then it starts to add up. It starts to add up. So here's another one. I only bought one toy because we had no money in my family. We were very poor. So I only bought one toy and brought it home from Disney World, and it happened to be a demon toy. And I looked online and I was able to find my toy. And here it is. This apparently was made by the Pointer Corporation in 1972. So by the time I bought it in 1984, it was already 12 years old, but they were still making it. And what you do is you see that slot on the left, you put a coin in there, and then the box starts to actually move up and down with this motor. It goes, meow, meow, meow. The whole box starts moving like this. And then this creepy hand comes out and grabs your coin. It's a blue hand, grabs the coin, the lid pops up. You can see there's a lid there. So the lid pops up, a hand comes out, grabs the coin, and then yanks it back into the box, and it disappears again. That's the only toy I bought. Clearly indicating that there's a demon in the box. Why would they sell this thing at Disney World, okay? So here's a closer detailed view of it. And I lost my original. I'll probably buy some more. People are probably going to start buying me this as a gift now, and that's fine. I would love that. But anyway, it was at one point called The Thing. The hand looks different in this one than the one I had. The most amazing mystery box grabs coins and saves them. Spooky green hand, mine was blue, grabs coins and disappears. And they've got pictures of people from the Addams Family. So this is one incarnation of it, The Thing from the Addams Family. And this one just has a lever switch, but you can see that hand looks basically the same as the one I had. So again, there were two different versions of it that they made. So this is like an on-off switch. But then they figured out, hey, we can have these two brass contacts inside the thing, put a coin in there, and now as soon as you put the coin in, it's like a piggy bank, and it triggers this demonic hand. So I think my subconscious was trying to tell me something here. I think I bought this little black box, as they originally called it. This is from the 1950s version of it, so that I would leave a talisman for myself when I got old enough, if I could ever remember what these people did, that I could get through this. So now you notice on the bottom of the thing, there's a little thing sticking out, and that's what they use to make the box go up and down. Then as we see here, I think the one that I bought was called the Bandit box. I think that was probably the box that it was in when I got it, or maybe it was a little bit newer looking, I don't know. 2 pen-light batteries, and then you put the coin in the box until the motor starts grinding. The box will start shaking. Slowly the hand reaches out and grabs the coin. To remove coins, lift the lid and shake it out. Okay. So there you go. 1972 Pointer products. So again, I'm proving that this is true. And this is pretty much exactly what mine looked like, except that in this case, the hand is kind of flesh-colored. Oh yeah, people are saying black cube of Saturn. I hadn't even thought about that. You guys are awesome. I remember those horrible demon banks. Somebody says that was Dorothy Turek. Disney, enough said, where there's money, all the bad guys will come to it. Maybe the world similar to the one portrayed in the puzzle was created in your mind and the minds of other children who played with it. Yeah, if you want to believe that, go ahead. But wait till you see all the other stuff that I got. We're just getting started. I'm just rolling up my sleeves. This is going to be a 3-hour show. I do like to do 3 hours because I want you to see all this evidence. Okay, back to it. So the next thing that's very, very strange is my so-called sacred pajamas, because when I was showing you these last time, and I forgot to bring them down again, somebody said, you know, David, the image on the front of these pajamas is really strange and perverted, kind of. First of all, the football player himself is kind of roughly phallic shaped. You know, his helmet and then the shape of his body. It all looks kind of phallic, but as you zoom in on this, what we see is that he's grabbing, not for the football, there's very clearly images of motion, like the football player's arm. If you look at the football player in the front, his 2 hands are on the shoulder of the football player number 31. And he's just in kind of the background, but there again, he's not grabbing a football, he's grabbing onto the guy's shoulder, and there's lines around his hands that indicate that there's movement. There's lines on his knee, there's lines around his foot, and very noticeably, there are vibrational lines on the back of his butt. And he's also dressed up with these weird Ronald McDonald shoes, right? Like maybe McDonald, I don't know. Let's just throw everything into our conspiracy theory, right? Let's add McDonald's, add whatever you want. I don't care. It could be all in there. But anyway, if you really kind of look at what this could be, it does look sort of like a hypnotic depiction of somebody involved in sexual activity. That this could be the one football player behind the other football player, grabbing onto him and just basically pumping away. You know, it's very, very creepy and disturbing. And so I'm now speculating and I didn't even know. I mean, I just brought those pajamas out, and then I'm reading your comments, and somebody says, you know, it's kind of a perverted image. I'm like, Well, yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? Wow. So, I mean, it's not hugely direct, but it's direct enough. And then it occurs to me, well, what if the Disney people intended for my grandfather to give me these pajamas? He was the one that gave me these pajamas. They have blood red cuffs, blood red around the neck too. So that indicates something potentially. And it has this weird hypnotic image on it that kind of implies what might have been happening. They said I had repeated wounding. So if you have your child with this image on his pajamas every night, then his subconscious is reminded that this is a quote-unquote normal thing, supposedly. It's just, oh, he's just playing ball, right? They're just playing football. It's just a game. It's not really that bad. It's all, and it's on my clothes. I mean, I wore these every night. I think it's the right knee is totally worn out because I wore these pajamas, but then after I had an out-of-body experience, which was very likely a UFO abduction, I stopped wearing the pajamas and I put them in a bag and I've kept them with me ever since. How many people do you know that saved the pajamas from when they were 5 because the experience they had in them was so powerful that they needed to do this? Well, it gets crazier because after I got off the air last time, I said, is there any other weird stuff going on with these pajamas? And then I looked at the label. Whoa, wait till you see the label. It says Silville. Silville. Now look at the LVIL by itself. The L could very easily, the first L could very easily be made into an E, in which case it's the word evil, right? And then the SI is in this strange coat of arms that looks exactly like your classic Illuminati symbol. It's got the king's crown. It's got the coat of arms shield. It's clearly representative of generational bloodline activity, as I was saying. Silville, right? Well, Sil, what is the Sil? It could be silver. Silver evil? Or could it be silver devil too? Silver devil. Well, silver-haired devil. If these people are older and they have silver hair and they're participating in devil stuff, why not call the mind control pajamas Silville? And that's something I never would have expected. Not only did they give it this very, very weird evil name, they used the actual coat of arms symbol. So then I say to myself, all right. Is there any other Silville pajamas? Sure enough, I found them. And right now there's a vintage Silville Christmas plaid pajamas for sale, $13. And when you zoom in on it and you zoom in on the label in this picture, it's the same thing, folks. It's the silver-haired devil. It's got the coat of arms. It's the same exact logo. So again, does this prove anything? No. And skeptics are going to be like, oh, no, I don't believe any of this. Well, that's because you want to feel comfortable. You don't want this to be true because it's disturbing, and I get that. Well, then when you start looking at my childhood artwork, this becomes much more explainable after what Michael said, that I was in some type of secret space program that involved, torture. So I'm going to show you some of these, and again, this is where it could get very triggering. So if any of this stuff upsets you, I would say either just stop watching it or come back later. But we still have 5,500 people watching after 2 hours. So this was the first drawing that I made after I came home from Disney World. And look at what it shows. I mean, this is very disturbing. Very disturbing. And there's my mom's handwriting. If you can see it on the bottom right, it says Dave 1984. So this was after we came home. Well, there's the image of a child crying while his hair is the pink, and then you see it's better if we flip it this way. So he's crying, and he's got a teardrop that's taped onto his face. There's a drop of blood there as well. There's another drop of blood on the bottom. And then we have this strange green military-looking man who is clearly eating the side of this kid's head. I found out actually by talking to Chris afterwards that weird brown thing inside of his mouth, Chris says that there's multiple ET ships that use that exact type of design. This is a very common design, so I probably saw craft that looked just like this. Another thing that's a little bit hard to tell is that I made a blue dove, which indicates death, that I was actually being killed, and the dove is immediately below the child's face, which is delineated by his pink hair. You can also see that I drew 2 X's in his hair, which again is a symbol of death, 2 dead eyes. And he's crying. So it's like, wow, there's something really weird here. If you go back to the side view again, there's also phallic imagery there in the form of the bottle, and then the two round areas behind the bottle. Of course, I don't need to explain that anymore. This could be an indication of, bad things happening, abuse, trauma. And then we also have the stop sign. I got the green stop sign. I have it, and it's clearly there, so it's like I want this to stop. And then also there's some weird elephant creature indicated by the red construction paper and his little eye and his little tusk. So that might have been some kind of weird extraterrestrial with a trunk. I'm not really sure. But it looks like two different things could be eating me. You got the blue dove of death. You got image of abuse. Then there's another kind of Pac-Man thing eating the man on the bottom left there. All very strange stuff, folks. So again, there was like, maybe there was implants. Maybe they were giving me implants. There's a thing called psychic surgery that I talked about in the last show, but it was taped right onto my little face. And I'm not even really sure what that's about, but maybe they were putting implants in me. All that stuff has been taken out now. Archangel Michael has cleared me of all this. Nobody can do anything to me now. So this is another one that's really strange. In 1986, I made this based on what my friend had the idea of doing, which is that you put your pen on this little line in the middle, and you cut a hole in there with the pen. So that was a rip in the paper, and then you'd put the paper on the table. You put the pen in the hole, and then you lift up the paper, and the pen drops through the hole. And I was analogizing it here to a wormhole. So it says, place your pen here. I have a frequency modulation for the resistor and antenna, the control that goes from 1 to 11. And then it says delicate tear in the time-space continuum. And then on the bottom I wrote, this is a maximum potential resistor so as not to let your pen evaporate into an air pocket, which is a tear in the delicate fabric of the time-space continuum, i.e. your pen won't get lost. So, at first this seems pretty benign. It's a kid that's fascinated with, wormholes and stuff, but that slash in the middle also could represent a sacrificial wound, in which case some part of me is remembering that it is through the process of this practice that they're creating portals in space and time that allow these disgusting creatures to get in. So that's very weird. Another potential indication that strange stuff happened to me is the design I made for the Pinewood Derby. In 1986, I drew this very interesting car that looks a lot like something more extraterrestrial, but that's what I was interested in building. 1987, I have some pretty compelling images of what look like alien beings. And in fact, I talked to Chris, and he said, yes, there are extraterrestrials that wear gas masks when they are around our people, and they look just like that. This is very accurate, because notice the eyes are too big and they're too far up on the mask compared to typical gas masks. Then the one on the bottom was very strange in terms of, in Cosmic Disclosure, Corey had the triangle-headed being, and in fact, Chris told me, yeah, there's certain ETs that do look like this. So that was weird. Then, in this case, I sketched on the back side of the same paper. You can still see the gas mask on the right. It's dimmer, but it's there. And then on the opposite side, I sketched an insectoid being. And so here it is up close. And then notice also that I drew 666 above it in terms of 16, 16, 16. I guess I was adding up a bunch of numbers, and then I carried the 2, and it goes up to 76, if you look at it upside down. But then my subconscious embedded 666 in there. So it would imply that I was dealing with insectoids that were very evil. Then we have this strange Delta spacecraft that shows up in 1987. Let me go back to that slide again real quick. So again, this does look like various designs that have leaked, like the Aurora. I didn't know anything about this, but there it was in my high school illustrations once again. What the heck is going on there? This is another very, very peculiar one because it appears to be illustrative of the moon landing. We talked about this during the conference, and so you have a lunar lander there, and it's stylized. It's not exactly right, but it kind of looks like the lunar lander. And then you have this weird mountain that's like opening up. So if you look at the bottom left, it's like there's a pyramid-looking thing, and there's a big crack with light. So it's like some kind of entrance to an underground facility. Now, I don't know what the heck the smoke cloud is coming out of the lunar lander. It may have indicated the fear that they were feeling or whatever. I'm not sure. There's some kind of weird DNA manta ray coming out of the thing. It's probably indicative of, demonic energy. But anyway, this becomes very, very weird when we learn more disclosure. First of all, notice this weird symbol at the top. It does very much resemble the double-headed eagle, the classic deep state symbol. So, it's weird. And, we're back up to 5,700 again, so I guess you guys have forgiven me. Somebody said it's a uterus. I hadn't even thought of that. Thank you, guys. 666 isn't evil, though. Well, yeah, it represents the masculine. Okay, that's fine. But, again, how did I draw the double-headed eagle on the moon? Like there's something going on the moon. And then, when we did our show with Chris, we talked about Draco motherships, and he confirmed that this illustration from William Tompkins is, in fact, what Draco motherships look like. As it says here, this is from Dr. Michael Salla, excellent researcher. William Tompkins' insider drawing of NASA's live feed of starships on the edge of the Sea of Tranquility crater, menacing the Apollo 11 astronauts, in his book, Selected by Extraterrestrials, page 417. So that little tiny speck that you see in the middle of the crater was the lunar lander. And I also, in the talk that I gave, had this quote from the book Above Top Secret from Neil Armstrong, where he said, we were greeted by somebody on the moon. It was very big, it was very frightening, and we got scared away. So if you go up there and you think you're alone, and then these gigantic ships surround you, this would be very troubling. Now, we've heard in the past that the Death Star that you see in Star Wars is a very close facsimile to what Draco motherships actually look like. That's one of the insider testimonies. And apparently this funny cross-shaped antenna on the top, again, Chris Beskar, our top insider right now, confirmed, yeah, this is what they do, this is what they look like. So look at this in conjunction with what was in my image. Now granted, there's some differences here. I drew it like a tank, because again, my mind added some things like a turret on the front and the tank treads on the bottom. I have some weird, evil-looking symbol on the side of the thing, which is consistent with many images of ritual magic and the circles they draw. But then you look at the top, and it's like, well, darn, not only do I have the right overall shape, it's a vehicle of war, but I've got the thing on the top with the point and then the two things coming out to the sides. When I drew the things out on the sides going longer, wider than they really are, maybe that's an energy field I was thinking of. I don't know. But we got the double-headed eagle and we've got the lunar lander. It's as if I was drawing this event where the Draco scared away the Americans. And I'm sure if I'd been in the space program and they were taking me there with a UFO and I can't remember anything, this is the type of memories that my mind would have been filled with. Now, this is another one that was really, really scary. And it talks about when I saw the movie The Shining, I got extremely freaked out because at the end, Jack Nicholson chases his own son through this snow maze, and then he's going to hack up his son with a machete. It's really horrifying. Like, my parents were great to me, so it's just like the child's worst nightmare. And so a child should not watch The Shining. And so I drew a very, very disturbing illustration after I watched The Shining that I believe is indicative that these types of things, like getting chased by somebody who wants to kill me in a maze, a typical child hunting party thing, that happened to me. Because this is probably the worst one that I'm going to show you today. So again, I'm doing my classes on geology. I'm talking about erosion, transported soil, blah, blah, blah. But then look at this stuff. Red rum, of course, is murder spelled backwards. It's a major part of the movie. And when I zoomed in on that, I made a joke and I drew a bottle of Johnny Walker red rum. I'm trying to be funny. The classic catchphrase, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. I put that in there. And then you got these two kids who have been hacked up by Jack Nicholson, come play with us forever and ever and ever. Very disturbing. I got the kid on his bike. And then this is where it gets strange, right? I have the maze. I have room 237, and then here's Johnny, his face in the door. But there's some very distinctive differences in my illustration versus the original. In my illustration, Johnny has LSD tablets in his hand, which is illustrating by him holding up his hand. There's these 3 dots in there, as you can see. So that's the one thing that's not a part of The Shining. No drugs, but something that affects me the same way as LSD. Of course, we know what that is now. It's part of these ceremonies. And then what's even weirder is that I say, run in die Maze, die in die Maze. That sounds like German, doesn't it? It sounds Nazi. There's no Nazi stuff. There's nobody saying die Maze in The Shining. But if I had to go through a maze, then I might have been having the same type of idea. So that's a very compelling thing. When Michael is telling me this, and I go back through my own papers, I'm like, darn, man, isn't that a disturbing illustration? Well, the ones that I'm not going to show you most of were the images of my own death. It's very sad. 1986, there was a theme involving blood-stained knives, and so some of these I'm not going to show you. There was one where I was being hanged. That's me as a little fat kid with my little striped shirt and my little fat belt. You know, I think that's probably one of the ways they terminated me. They probably tried just about everything because they were having fun with this, their idea of fun. This is another really strange one that, you know, has some very disturbing elements to it. But the main part is up here that there's a Rube Goldberg device where somebody is knocking this ball and then it bounces off of a cage that I'm in, then hitting this thing that's like a hammer, and that makes the dynamite go off. But the dynamite is inside this weird harp-shaped thing that has the time-space continuum, the grid of geometry. So, like, they're coming up with really strange, exotic ways to kill me. They're holding me in cages. Another one involved me being guillotined, having my head chopped off, apparently. And I'm not going to show you the other ones because they're just awful. But, you know, the way that these drawings came into being was that I was having horrifying nightmares, and I couldn't get rid of them. And I said, okay, well, if there was this thing called Cat's Eye, the movie that, or the book that Stephen King wrote that became a movie, and these demons are haunting him, and they say, if you want us to go away, you have to write about us. Well, I saw that movie too, so I said, you know, maybe if I draw this crazy stuff, maybe I'll stop having these horrible dreams where I'm always being chopped up. And it did work. After I drew these, I felt a lot better, and the pain went away. I never was suicidal, but there were these strong ideas of it in my mind, which again is demonically inspired. Then I believe this is probably my dad's boss that I'm drawing here. I had a friend named Steve, and again, I'm in geology class, so I say Steve as an adult. But this looks pretty similar to my father's boss. That's who I think this probably is. So that's one illustration of him. You can tell I don't like this guy because I drew him with all these crazy zits. He's very ugly and disgusting. Mindy Newman says, I'm speechless. This is so terrifying. I'm sorry about that. You know, we just, you know, you can't hide in the sand. But again, this is another abuse illustration. And this one is very curious because once again, it says Ooga Booga, and it's like some weird multi-dimensional opening, like there's a book opening, and it's hanging on a string from somewhere. And then I wrote, the caveman style is in. And he's burping, but then notice that there's a bone going through his hair, and there's a hand with illustrations. So that all is very, you know, there's lots of connotations with the bone. What does a bone represent? What is the hand doing? And then notice also he has a soda bottle or beer bottle that's overflowing. He's drank the beer. He says burp. He's drunk. He's got a weapon. He can hit you with the weapon. He can hurt you. And he's summoned some sort of creature like Dino. Now, the dinosaur is, again, a reptilian. Now, do I think it literally looks like that? Absolutely not. On some level, I thought I was doing a derivative Fred Flintstone drawing. I didn't know why. Why would I say the caveman style is in? Well, Fred Flintstone has Dino, and this guy had his reptilians. And I was being hurt and abused by this guy, and he would make these grunting noises, which I then illustrated as oog and ooga booga. So people say, do not stop. Fraser Ray says, keep going, David. Do not stop. I heard ooga booga as a little girl. They scare us as kids, and they show us what's going on with Pixar and Simpsons. Wendy Linton says, Mindy, don't be terrified. This is his trip, not yours. Don't apologize, David. Dorothy Turek says, we empathize with your horrifying memories. So, and yeah, we still got 5,000, almost 5,700 people watching. So everybody's sticking with me. Thank you, guys. I've desensitized myself to these images now, so I'm not going to have the type of reaction I had last week. And again, everybody in the audience was really cool. Nobody judged me, and that made me feel much better. So this abuse illustration is highly, highly compelling and disturbing. And then what in the hell was I doing drawing the sigil of Moloch, right? How did I come up with this? Well, I was going through a book on ritual magic that was in my parents' basement, and I saw this sigil of Moloch, which apparently is what they draw to summon this being. I mean, I did it as a kid, but I don't know what the Tao means. I mean, I really don't understand this, but when I saw this thing in this book, I was so freaked out, you guys. I was so freaked out. I didn't know what it was, but when I saw it, I said, I got to draw that. I need to document this because I just had this overwhelming feeling of terror. And so sure enough, nowadays we know what's going on with Moloch. Lisa Victoria says, I drew Flintstone on the wallpaper in my flower room with my crazy parents and I would be punished. We are from the same place. Monsters Incorporated, what the fork? It's a corporation. Yeah, it's very similar to the movie Monsters Incorporated. Again, what I'm saying is if Archangel Michael predicts the future and he tells me I was in a program, that I was abused, that all these things happen, I'm looking for evidence. That's what we're doing now is I'm showing you the evidence. I actually drew another magic circle, which was another demon called Ojamatau. And again, I saw this in the book. It freaked me out so much, I drew it. And this gives you a sense of the actual types of weird black magic symbols that are used to invoke these beings. It's apparently like an IP address. You have to draw it properly on the ground. You have to do everything properly, and then they will show up. And maybe this was a winged being or something. Maybe the hat is illustrative of hats they were wearing. I'm not really sure. Stillman37 says, David, we love you, brother. I have been you since the start. I've been awake since I was a kid. Don't trust the Elohim veneer Anunnaki. Well, again, I believe that there are good Elohim. I don't think they're all bad, and they're saving our butts here. So here's another one that's really crazy, you guys. Let's just keep on going, you know. In this case, I depict myself being eaten by a giant lake monster. And notice the cubes. I'm drawing these hyperdimensional cubes, indicating that this, again, comes from hyperspace. And so there's the monster. It's got some type of energy field. It's drawing me into its mouth. And then there's a guy on the side saying, oh, no. And again, I drew a weird tail on the thing because it wasn't really a fish. I was remembering something else. But again, I had terrifying feelings, and I just had to draw this to feel better. And then I'm drawing these, again, hypercubes up above. So next we have this all-seeing eye, and then another image of me being killed, this time by being thrown off a cliff. Maybe they did that too, I don't know. But then Eye of the Tarot, what the hell is that? I have no idea. I mean, yes, I was doing tarot card readings, but I didn't know what the heck this was. So very strange, very, very strange. And then when I drew myself, I'm not a very happy guy. I have a very haunting look in my face. My eyes look incredibly sad. They're darker than the rest of the image. And this was tough, man. I was going through a tough time at this point. You can see this is not a happy person. But this is after I lost weight and my face was starting to take the shape that it has now. It's not very good. The ears are wrong. Everything's wrong. But, you know, you can see that's where I was. So I cut ahead from here in the Loveland talk. There was some stuff that I didn't put in because I just couldn't get through it all. This one freaked me out too much to give to the audience, but I'm going to show it to you now. This is, again, me being killed in ritual circumstances. Very, very, very disturbing shit. So first of all, what the hell is this? I didn't know anything about the all-seeing eye when I drew this in 87 or whenever it was, but you got the all-seeing eye manifesting in some cloud of energy. And now in context, this is probably some type of demonic manifestation. You know, the all-seeing eye, of course, is a very popular symbol. Where did I get this stuff from? You know, what's going on here? Well, there it is. It's right there, the eye manifesting out of the vortex. And then on the bottom, I drew two paths. There's the path of the Master Jesus Christ, which is positive, and that's associated with the sun, the solar logos. So I got that label master off of a cassette tape. I think it was a Sony. And then on the left is the path of darkness, which is the path of evil. And so you have the upside down pentagram, you have Moloch, which I didn't know what that was, but some part of me did. And then again, you have these sigils of ritual magic, all inside some type of weird, stylized, evil castle. So this was again evidence, and then this is the most scary part, is that there's something going on where it's me remembering being terminated, screaming, and then literally turning into my soul and leaving my body. So very, very disturbing stuff. Okay, so we're going to go ahead a little bit on the next one here, because that one I don't think we're quite ready for, and I'm running out of time. But I wanted to get ahead to this, because this is the other one that was really important that I didn't get to in the show. The Leviathan. So I saw this movie, Hellraiser 2. I absolutely do not recommend that you ever see this movie. It is the worst horror movie probably ever. There's prolonged scenes of people with no skin on their bodies, and they're rolling around in a bed together covered in blood. It's just absolutely disgusting. It's considered one of the most disgusting horror movies ever made. I didn't know that. I watched it with my buddy, and after I saw this movie, I was so freaking freaked out for the longest time. Now, in the movie, they have this thing that's called Leviathan. These people go through a labyrinth at the end. They're in hell. And there's this big artificial intelligence. There's an artificial intelligence that is a big obelisk that's rotating, and it has these black beams coming out of it. And that is Satan. So Satan is essentially some weird technological thing in the movie. So here's the poster for Hellraiser 2. Again, I do not recommend you see this. They're opening up a box. They play with the puzzle. The box opens up a portal to hell, and there they go. And he's even got the evil satanic arches around his face. I talked about the symbolism of the arch before. Pinhead is this guy's name. So there is the scene from the movie in which they are in the labyrinth. It's got all these arches, the satanic arches everywhere. And there is, in the background, the bottom half of this weird Leviathan. And here's what the Leviathan looks like up close. You can clearly see in the movie, it's got machine-like technology on the sides. It's shooting out these black energy bolts of darkness. Here is it illustrated in some type of cartoon, like a comic book. It has begun. So this is, whoever did this movie probably had a pretty good idea what they were doing. And this is another example, like in 2001, of the concept of an AI evil. In 2001, you have the monolith, and it's clearly some technological artifact, but it causes the apes at the beginning to become violent and start beating each other with the club. Remember that part? So this is the Leviathan in Hellraiser 2. And here's another illustration of the Leviathan. So after I saw the movie, I had a very, very intense vision that once again I had to draw into an illustration. And this gets back to, as I said at the beginning, that one of the weird pieces of intel that Chris Beskar disclosed was Lucifer's palace. That there was this place that apparently exists in Antarctica where there's a huge building, and it's very ornate, and the top elites are going in there, and they meet up with a humanized projection of what identifies as Lucifer. And so if all this stuff is true and I was in a secret space program, guess what? I probably got taken there. And again, I only learned about this very recently from Chris. It's very strange, but here we go. So this was related to The Matrix, the drawing that I made, where I had this vision and then I drew it of an evil windmill, very similar to what we see in Hellraiser 2. But it's powered by a matrix of trapped souls. So this is what I saw. This was my illustration. Now, there's a lot of really weird technical particulars in this. First of all, it looks kind of Islamic, I guess. The building has this funny kind of Persian appearance to it. There's clearly some evil being in the background, maybe the Antichrist or, again, Satan in his palace. These strange things around it, the strange window. But then, in the foreground, I drew my own version of the Leviathan from Hellraiser, except now it's a windmill. And in my vision, the windmill could only turn because of these people being trapped in a matrix. So look at this. The matrix is depicted right here, and we see on the bottom, sure enough, all of these individual, once again, there's a grid pattern. Now, what in my dream I couldn't quite illustrate well enough is that in the matrix you have two layers of the sandwich that are both made of square grids, and there's these white circles on the top and these black circles on the bottom. Each one of those in my vision was a human being trapped in a matrix, and it was their energy that was making the windmill turn. It was making the windmill turn. Here's Lucifer in the background. Okay, so this is a very, very creepy thing. And again, what I was being shown was that yes, our own energy is tapped into some kind of a matrix that the evil is feeding off of. These people were like trapped in it. And so this is extremely peculiar, isn't it? Like, wait a minute, the Matrix movie didn't come out until 1999. And this is like I had remote viewed what the Matrix is all about. There's these people trapped in an energy matrix, and yes, they are batteries, and their energy is powering the Leviathan. So that's very, very weird. So sure enough, in 1989, I guess, or that, not, I'm sorry, I don't know why it's, 1989 shouldn't be there. I forgot to cut that part. But this is what happens when you're live. But it was much more recent than that. John Kerry, and I think it was 2017, and Buzz Aldrin both visited Antarctica. I talked about this in my book, Ascension Mysteries, a little bit, that there's some weird shit in Antarctica. So this was, again, from 2017. Russian UFO hunter claims that satellite photographs show a 1,900-foot alien spaceship crash landed in Antarctica millions of years ago. Valentin Degtyaryov from Nizhny Tagil claimed the object was UFO wreckage. Google Earth images show an unusual shape in the planet's southerly content. I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately. 230,000 views on the video. Many comments skeptical say it's just the top of Barren Mountain. Now, it may be that this is totally fake, but in fact, it's consistent with many other testimonies that there are motherships in Antarctica. So then what we see is, okay, there's what they think is this crashed spaceship. I guess I do have a picture of it. And so they concluded that that's what we're looking at here. I don't know if it's true. It's kind of hard to make anything out, but they came up with a fanciful idea. But again, this is called a limited hangout. It can't be proven, and yet it's true. There's something going on. So they're talking about stuff that's real, but then they give you evidence that can be debunked, because this doesn't really look very convincing. So around the same time, 2017, both John Kerry and Buzz Aldrin visited Antarctica, and according to Chris Beskar, they're doing this to visit Lucifer in his palace. So here's John Kerry, and here he is actually on his C-130 flight to Antarctica as he's disembarking, and now he's in Antarctica. It's very cold. He's got the Antarctic patch on there, and here he is looking at the ocean on the ship as they're, coasting around, getting ready to go meet good old Uncle Louie. Uncle Lou, how's it going, buddy? Long time no see. Hey, what do you need, man? You need some blood? All right, so anyway, here's Buzz Aldrin. Somebody had to put rabbit ears behind his girlfriend, looks like. They probably got in trouble for that. But Buzz Aldrin, and he's also saying mission to Mars. So then he fell ill when he visited the South Pole, and he had to be evacuated. And then at the same time that he was on this trip, he wore this shirt that says, "Get your ass to Mars." Now, does that mean that anything bad happened to Buzz Aldrin there? Maybe. I mean, I also heard from Pete Peterson that they took him around the moon in a spaceship. But, if he got evacuated because he became sick, imagine what would happen if you walk into this incredible palace and then you see Lucifer. And he's looking you in the eye and he can talk and it's real. Well, the fifth density entities, including the negative ones, they can do this. So apparently this is real. I mean, when Chris used to tell me about Lucifer's palace, I just laughed at him. Oh, yeah, whatever. But then when I finally got it, like, no, this is real. And we talked about it and we disclosed it last weekend for the first time. I think Christians will be very excited about this because, learning that Lucifer is real, learning that this stuff is real, it affirms your faith and it makes you say, I really ought to get my life together. And then I drew this, which indicates to me spiritual shamanic help. I was very into shamanism at the time to fight back against Lucifer's palace. And I drew this in 1989. So again, this is a strange image. On the bottom left, we have a spaceship going through space. On the bottom right, we have some stylized depiction of probably a reptilian that was killing me. It's got SS for a mouth, which indicates the German Nazi component to it. Above this thing is a treasure sack, and then I have the weapon, the blade, that's going to kill the Draco. So I have to slay the dragon, which is on the bottom right, with this blade, and then when I do so, I get the treasure, which is the gold coins inside the bag. Now, above the bag is, sure enough, a little illustration of Lucifer's palace, and you can see as I zoom in on it, there's the turret, there's the palace, the two things in front of the palace, and then behind it are what looks like three pyramids. And so I imagine that this is what we're going to see. So when I compare the two of them side by side, you can see, sure enough, this is an extenuation of the Lucifer's palace idea. There's detail of the spaceship. And another thing that's really strange is that I drew the Cabal's 8-pointed star and the 4-pointed star. How did I know that stuff? The 8-pointed star shows up in Eyes Wide Shut. It's all over the place in Christmas decorations. Go look for that. If you ever watch Eyes Wide Shut, it's all over the place. They hid it in there. But again, the being on the left is some type of shamanic spiritual being, Asian in nature, I believe, and it's like an Asian warrior spirit with his arrows, you know, telling me I have to grab the sword of Archangel Michael, which is what's depicted in the middle, and I have to slay this evil dragon, which again is this face right here. Very, very disturbing looking face of whatever it is that I saw. And you don't want to come face to face with this guy, believe me. It's not fun. There's the up close of the spiritual being. And again, I was reading all these books, Carlos Castaneda, shamanism, so that's what I was illustrating. Very interesting stuff. So then, I was also drawing images that suggest I was on some alien world where they had these spheres that would levitate above these cubes. That doesn't look like anything on Earth, but then we got sphinx-like things, and there's two people in desk chairs at the bottom. The desk chairs probably indicate the people that were, you know, working at GE and that were taking me to these places, and I just was showing you how all of this originates from very conventional looking stuff. And there's an Egyptian component too, because of the sphinxes that these guys are on either side of. Then I drew another image of what looks like an insectoid, very psychedelic, strange insectoid spaceship. And when you turn it right side up, you got this strange looking, kind of googly-eyed insectoid face. Here's another strange insectoid doodle. And when you kind of look at it, it looks like a praying mantis. If you imagine the heart is his nose, and then on the sides of the heart would be the sides of his face. You got these kind of fangs on the bottom, and you see the two eyes are kind of darker colored. Yeah, it's pretty creepy insectoid. And all the Z's may have indicated that they hypnotize you and you can't remember anything. So my brother drew this image of military warfare. The master has arrived. It's kind of a sad image. You know, he's shooting everybody. And we laughed about it at the time. This was kind of my buddy who wanted to go into the military. And we thought, man, you're crazy. Why do you want to go shoot a bunch of people? But then after my brother drew this, I drew something very similar for myself, but it had different components. And I drew Ronald Reagan as a nuclear destroyer of humanity. Now, I didn't realize it at the time, but obviously the guy on the right is too short to be regular. He looks more like a child. And then look at the two grenades on the gun. This is also a phallic symbol, as is the nuclear mushroom cloud. Could be, I mean, he's grabbing onto something that comes out of the mushroom cloud. That looks phallic. But it also could be not only a nuclear missile, it could also indicate a sacrificial dagger, and it could also indicate an injectable syringe. It could actually be a prophecy of what they wanted to do to humanity, that they were going to do this with injectables and try to bring about this apocalypse, and they have all this money behind them. So there's the up close of the thing. But what was so strange was that I drew this serial number on it, and you can read it quite clearly. I'm going to zoom in even more. And it says 03393742. And this is all related to, again, maybe the COVID apocalypse, the injections, this idea of doom. What's going on here? And the lightning, the Nazi lightning is there again. So before the conference, I looked up the number, and my God, it had all these connections to our event. The first thing I found was that there was an unclassified document. So this, again, Just the term classified, of course, indicates classified government secrets, which my illustration showed. So I believe that this and other examples I'm about to show you is Archangel Michael's outside of time. The serial number was meant to be read now, and I got all the digits correct, which is very hard to do in remote viewing. Somehow I did this. I don't know how, but it happened. So unclassified, and that's the 03393742. Then here was another example of it, and this is the same document now. Directorate for Financial and Enterprise Affairs Competition Committee, Latin American and Caribbean Competition Forum, Spanish version. Then down at the bottom, again, Latin American 03393742. So you've got classified and you got Latin American. And as I said at the beginning, we had everybody at my conference, the 10 different staff people were all Latin American, and we're talking about classified stuff. And it has this exact same number that was in my illustration, time bending right through the time window, 03393742. Unbelievable. And it's even got the 33 in there too. So again, here it is up close, the Latin American Caribbean Competition Forum. And we were having a forum. We were having a big meeting. This is really weird. Another thing, both of these are very significant. 03393742 shows up in Siberia. And there's all these stock photos of Siberia. Well, this was the last thing I talked about in my last show before I went to this event, that there was a UFO Roswell in Siberia. And I said that the Zoroastrians came from Siberia before the Earth tilted on its axis. So Siberia was time looped into the whole story. It's unbelievable. And then at the same time, we have the Mitsubishi Space Star motor. So I clicked on that. And again, look, it says 03393742. Well, Space Star motor? Yeah. The Mitsubishi Space Star motor, this is a picture of it for sale. And this is where it fits inside the Mitsubishi Star vehicle. It is a motor that fits inside the Mitsubishi vehicle. Now, this is really strange because our company, Stavati Aerospace, has already been in touch with Mitsubishi regarding potential future collaborations because they build all kinds of stuff, and we could potentially get them helping us building things like hover cars, which is a Space Star motor. The motor that we're going to put in the hover cars that Mitsubishi might help us build are star motors that will take us to space, and here is the Space Star motor. Again, so this is very, very strange. It pops up as the Latin American Competition Forum, unclassified. It pops up as Siberia, which I just talked about, and it pops up as a Mitsubishi Space Star motor, which is actually, you know, the motor is one of the main things we're doing. It's the anti-gravity motor, and it is a space motor. So this is really weird. And again, we have some illustration of some type of energetic attack. It could be very much a COVID prophecy because he gets sick. He's got these sores all over his body, and it's like an energy coming out of the gun. There again is the syringe, so this is very prophetic of what we've been through, the COVID apocalypse. Plus you have his hand could be on a phallic symbol, and then the mushroom cloud could be more phallic symbols of what's associated with that. Then, this is also prophetic of what I'm doing now. These are lyrics from a song by Black Sabbath, which at the time I listened to. Yes, I know the secret that's within your heart. Now I've found you out. I don't think you're so smart. I only have one more question before my time is through. Please, I beg you, tell me, in the game of hell, who are you? So you got all this stuff. You got injections. You got COVID. You got, you know, the weird stuff happening to his body. I mean, this is just incredibly, incredibly trippy, creepy, and weird. But I saved the best one for last, folks. Potential prophecy of my future work with Corey Goode, an illustration that looks just like him, and he is looking into, he's smoking a joint, which is pretty consistent for Corey. His head is blown up like a balloon, and it's on a string, which, you know, everybody oh, you guys have such a big ego, your head is so big. Well, I was making fun of that and all the hate that we get. But look at what's happening. He's looking into a stylized digital television the whole screen is dots and dashes. And Corey and I had a show on Gaia TV, which is a digital streaming show. Now on the bottom, I'm drawing what I thought was just illustrations of LSD, the trails that you get with your hand, and then this image of an orange bouncing off of the television. And then there's this brain. But what I realized is, the image of the ball bouncing also looks very similar to the classic evil symbol two-ball cane, which is, again, a seven-shaped cane. It looks like the number 7 with a long tail, and then 2 balls on either side of it. So it's very similar to two-ball cane, and the hand could indicate blood because, again, they get you into doing bloody things, and so I might have been remembering that on the bottom, hence the severed brain. But then notice again that he's looking into a stylized digital television with all the dots and dashes, indicating digital is how our television would be made. And originally I thought I was drawing this guy who had given me LSD, so you'll notice there's an LSD tab in his eyelid. That's what that is. Do not do this, by all means. It's a very bad idea. And then my friend Jude drew this image, the man in his bong, which again looks extraterrestrial and also has the phallic image on the bottom. So I'm going to jump ahead because we're just about out of time here, and I want to make sure, I'll get through all the rest of it, but I wanted to get through the most important stuff. So we're going to, there's a lot of stuff. I didn't know how long all this was going to take, but I want to get ahead now to where things really started to turn around for me because I got to work within the 3-hour window. So, and again, a lot of this stuff I shared is different evidence than the ones that I gave in the show. So you can see there's a preponderance of these drawings from my childhood. I got the documented proof that I went to Disney World, that they wanted me in this editorial council, and we sincerely hope you come into the editorial council meeting. Well, I want to explain that even if something like this did happen to you, whatever it was, however it happened, if you were tortured, if you went through all this stuff, redemption is possible. And that gets back to this amazing image of Garabandal, the Virgin Mary, as we were talking about. It's got the solar flash, the non-catastrophic ascension, all that stuff. That there's going to be the warning, which is the solar flash. They're going to try to debunk it. And then after that is the miracle, which is where people begin transforming into light body. So in 1992, I went and saw my friends after I'd gotten sober, and I told them I'd gotten clean, I'd had a spiritual awakening, and they said, "We don't believe you. There is no such thing as God. There's no such thing as extraterrestrials. There's no UFOs. All that stuff is fake. You're full of crap. Ha, ha, ha. Middle finger, middle finger." And they were really being rude to me, and I finally said, "Look, you guys, if you can't stop being so disrespectful to me, I am going to have to leave." And sure enough, they kept on going. They were smoking Marlboro cigarettes, drinking beer, and just insulting me like crazy. I just got up and walked out. I didn't even say anything. I got to the crossroads between their street and mine. I held my hands up to the sky, and I said, "God, I know you're real. And even though nobody else might want to believe that you exist, I do, and I am here. Let me know what you want me to do, and I will do it. I believe in you. I believe in myself, and I will help you." And right as I had this thought coming through my mind, this one little part of the sky that I'm looking at, this again is in Ascension Mysteries, there was a huge streak of light right across my field of vision. And then after this happened, I had this incredible Shaktipat experience where my whole body is surging with ecstatic energy. It was absolutely incredible. And so after that, I realized, wow, I asked the universe, I talked to God, and I actually got this streak of light in the sky, which could have been maybe a UFO did that. I mean, it could be a meteor, but even if it was just a meteor, the timing was incredibly, incredibly interesting. So that event in December 1992 was the first real overt sign from the universe that there was a divine force that wanted to talk to me and was going to bring me out of this hell that I had been experiencing that led to me drawing these drawings. So then, 1995 is when really everything starts to get exciting. So what was happening in 1995? I came home from having gotten fired from a job that I had at a mental hospital. And I got fired because I was too friendly. My boss, whose name was Hans, told me that he wanted me to dehumanize the patients. I'd had a psych degree, 4-year psych degree. He said, "David, you're trying to be friendly to them. That's not the job. We don't want you to be friendly to these patients. Your job is to make sure that they don't kill themselves and to make sure that they don't get anything that they're not supposed to get. They're not supposed to get into the kitchen. They're not supposed to get into their meds. They're not supposed to get into their cigarettes unless they have smoke break. That's it. You're a mental health tech. You are not authorized to offer them any treatment. That's the treatment team. You're not authorized to talk to them about anything having to do with their problems. You're not authorized to try to make them feel better. We don't even really want you smiling at the patients. I could not believe this. It's like, wait a minute. I went to psychology, got a bachelor's degree in psychology, successfully in 4 years. I'm not supposed to be helping people with my psych degree. I'm not qualified with a bachelor's degree to offer anything to the patients whatsoever. The other thing that was really curious about this was that there was a family of about 10 turkeys that lived around the property. And so every time I would drive to work in the morning and every time I would leave from work at the end of the day, I would see these turkeys. And for me, that was the best part of the job. And so when he fired me, I went out there and I saw the turkeys and I was crying in my car. I felt so badly about this. I'd been fired for being too friendly, but yet I got the only type of job you're really supposed to be able to get with a psych degree is like working in a mental hospital. But no, you're not part of the treatment team. You're not authorized to offer them any help at all. We don't trust you to be able to say anything to these people. All we want you to do is dehumanize them. And unfortunately, right before he fired me, I was just starting to get the hang of it. I was just starting to get the hang of the whole like, F you, I'm in power, you're not, I have the power, you don't. I hated it, but this was what they were trying to turn me into, like a little Nazi, you know? I didn't work out with that very well at all. And when he fired me, I was very relieved, and I never took any other job like this again. And I decided, yes, I am qualified. I do have enough knowledge to be able to help people spiritually. So I was distraught about this. I lost my job, and then I drove back up to further upstate New York, in Scotia, where my mom lived. And then I got together with my high school friend, Jude. And I'm still very upset because I got fired. And we go to his house on Lake George for a little while. Then we went to his girlfriend's house. It was in a relatively nearby area. When we were on the house in Lake George, I was telling him about this book that I had just started reading. And the book was From Elsewhere by Dr. Scott Mandelker. And the book was describing that some people are angelic, positive ETs in human form, that their soul does not come from the same place as everyone else. And the term was wanderers. And this is also the book that introduced me to the Law of One. I'd never heard of the Law of One before. And he quotes it like it's the best thing since sliced bread. So, okay, the Law of One sounds really cool. I need to read that. And so this was very, very inspirational to me. And then in Appendix 2 at the back of the book, Dr. Mandelker had this 12-part questionnaire. I forget how many questions. But it said, if you can answer these questions in the affirmative, it means that you are most likely a wanderer. And I looked at these questions and it's like, oh my God, this is the most personal, invasive, accurate psychological portrait of me, who I really am, my true motivations, my true feelings that I've ever seen. It's like somebody actually nailed me and put it in writing better than my own parents could have done. It said things like that you're always obsessed with ETs, UFOs, ancient civilizations, fantasy, check. It said that everybody takes advantage of you because you're so nice and compassionate that you don't even recognize evil. Check. It says that you never feel like you could fit in. You're an outsider. Nobody seems to love you. You're always just having relationships fall apart. Check. It said that people say that you're very naive. You're easily fooled. Check. You realize that if everybody else was like you, the world would be a much better place. Check. It just was, and in some cases it says, you know, you may actually be channeling consciously some type of higher intelligence. Well, that was the only one that didn't fit. But everything else was like, oh my God, this is like, he said that you may feel like your parents are not your real parents, that your real parents are somewhere far away. Check. The dreams I had with Archangel Michael seemed way more real to me than my own parents were. Even though I had parents, it's like when I wake up from these crazy dreams and I have a fever and I'm remembering talking to Obi-Wan Kenobi or whoever he is, that guy feels much closer to me than my own parents do. And all this stuff is in a list. And then Mandelker says, if you believe this is true, you need to personally commit to getting the answer. You need to personally find out the answer. And I said, well, okay, I'm sure as hell not going to do a Ouija board. And I don't know, tarot cards, that's not going to be any good. What can I do? And I talked to Jude about it, and he said, let's try automatic writing. And maybe then you'll get the answer about whether you're an ET soul. So I ended up having to tape a piece of paper onto the floor because otherwise it would move around. I used my left hand and I had a pencil. And I tuned in very, very deeply into meditation. I felt like I'm pulling something in through my third eye. And then all of a sudden, as I'm doing this, my hand goes, and it just did all this stuff. And I was like, whoa! As soon as it happened, I like dropped the pen. I'm like, ho, ho, turn on the lights, dude. Something just happened. We got to read this. Well, what it said was EC 4057 and oxen. And this was very, very interesting. After I got fired from the job at the mental hospital, I had to get a temp job. I needed money desperately, so I got to work at the Altamont Fair, and I was behind the chicken barn, and I was selling ADT home security systems, where I had to generate leads for salespeople. And next to me was a woman from Kenya who was selling beautiful, beautiful wooden sculptures. And in fact, I'm going to go get it right now. I'm going to show you this because it's right on my mantle. I want to actually show you the oxen that she made. Her husband made it. So just give me 1 second, because this is a very good prop for what I'm saying. That way you can see the real thing in real time. Okay, here he is. This is my buddy. This had such an impact on me, what happened, that I've saved this, and it's right on the top of my altar. Okay, so you can tell once again, I got to clean them up a little bit. Okay, so this was the little ox that I bought. It was a sculpture. It cost, I think, $22. I thought it was an incredible deal. It's made out of ebony wood, and it fell and broke, and he broke off one of his horns, as you can see here. And he also broke off his front foot. But this was my little ox. And when I bought this guy, I said, I asked the woman from Kenya, what does this guy represent? She says, you Americans, you think everything means something. I'm like, okay, fine. It may not mean anything in your culture, but this is a beast of burden, right? You're going to hook a plow on his ass and you're going to have him plow the fields for you. I mean, I have moon in Taurus and I was born in the year of the ox, so this is why I wanted to get an ox. She said, no, this is an oxen. This is one of the top 3 deadliest animals in Kenya. She said, if you run into this thing and you're within 300 feet, you just pray for a quick death. He's going to run towards you. He's going to gore you with his horn, throw you up in the air, and stomp you until you're dead. So he'll just keep running over your body. So people hope they don't die, over a long period of time from that. If you're more than 300 feet away from this guy, you just run like hell. So I thought that I was buying this guy as a symbol of going into the working world and having to make money and then having to be abused and being a beast of burden who has to plow the field. Then I find out, no. This is actually one of the 3 deadliest animals in Kenya. And, of course, it represents a bull, which is like a bull market, which is that you're actually going to make money. So there was all these different layers of metaphor. So right away, when I got this very strange telepathic message that included the word oxen in it, I said, well, I think I know what that oxen is. I think that's talking about my little guy. And I was so amazed when I found out that it actually was not a beast of burden, that it's actually a very powerful and dangerous animal that's also associated with, again, the bull market and prosperity. So I get this automatic writing and my hand does all this stuff by itself and it says oxen? What the heck is that? And then EC are the initials Edgar Casey. And again, this was 95. This was like 2 years before I discovered that I was apparently the reincarnation of Edgar Casey. In previous episodes, I showed you the face and the astonishing facial similarity. So Jude and I are like, well, the EC thing only came later. And I'm like, well, what in the world is EC 4057? And Jude was actually the first one who said, hey, maybe it's a Bible quote. Yeah, EC, okay, let's look in Ecclesiastes. Well, we looked in Ecclesiastes and there is no Ecclesiastes verse 40. It only goes up to, I don't remember how many. I guess it would be 18. I think it's chapter 1 goes up to verse 18, and then it goes into chapter 2. So, okay, all of a sudden I remembered from having studied theological texts that in the original era of the Bible, there were no verses. That came later so that they could more easily create quotations and citations from the material. Originally, in the early Christian days, Bible quotes were an exact number of how many verses it had been from the beginning. So I said, this is a code. 40 verses from the beginning, to 57 verses from the beginning, somehow related to my little buddy, Mr. Ox. Okay? That's weird. What is that all about? So let's go bust open the Bible and find out, where does it start 40 verses after the beginning? Well, my God, the first thing that happens is I find out it's Ecclesiastes 2:22. And as you've been hearing me say for so long, I was getting all these repeating numbers on clocks for the longest time. So right away, it's like, okay, well, it goes from Ecclesiastes 2:22, and then if you count to 57 verses after the beginning, you end up in 3:13. So right now, with just these 6 characters, EC4057, I've got a whole Bible quote, an exact Bible quote that's associated with this little guy, the beast of burden, who's actually the bull market, and he's actually a very dangerous animal, it totally changed how I saw myself. I thought it symbolized me, and it did. So now I want to read you this quote because it's stunning, and it's very prophetic. Remember, I had just gotten fired from my job, and I was so sad. The very first thing it says is, what do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. That is exactly what was happening to me. Every night I was so traumatized, having dehumanized these mental patients. This too is meaningless. Okay, that's it. They're telling me it doesn't matter that you got fired. I was all sad. I was crying. He said, nope, it's meaningless. Well, it's like somebody's up there with the Bible and they're like, let's give him this, Wow. How did this happen? I was so blown away as I was reading this, and it had the synchronicity number 222. I couldn't even believe it. Then he says, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God, for without him, who can eat or find enjoyment? So it's telling me, find a job that you can live with, find a job that will actually make you satisfied, which definitely, dehumanizing mental patients was not that job. They didn't even want me to smile. To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, and this is prophetic of right now, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. And even though this is ultimately great, it's also meaningless, chasing after the wind. So this, I believe, is exactly a prophecy of what's going on right now. The DS people have accumulated all the wealth. They've stolen it from us. And yet that's their one job, is to accumulate all the wealth so that, as it says right here, they will hand it over to those who please God. The meek shall inherit the earth. This is another ascension prophecy, just like Garabandal, just like all the stuff I've been telling you. And it relates again to the bull market. If this company that I'm doing succeeds, I will have massive financial resources, and I intend to use them benevolently. I'm not going to be doing, human trafficking and all this crazy stuff that they do. I actually want to make the world a better place so we can all be happy. Wouldn't that be nice? So you don't really want to chase after money. It's chasing after the wind. But nonetheless, this is what's going to happen. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. And then I realized, oh my gosh, this is that song, Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds. To everything to... Wow. How did they know that? I mean, that's the only part of the Bible I knew because I'd heard it in pop music. And, oh, that's in Ecclesiastes. Okay, now I know where they got this from. I didn't even know what the lyrics were. I had no idea they'd written these lyrics from the Bible. But here it is. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. That's kind of where I've been. But a lot of people hugged me at this event. Thank you guys. It was great. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. Well, like I threw away my job. A time to tear and a time to mend. Now I have to mend my life. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. Sometimes you do have to get mad and fight back and have boundaries. A time for war and a time for peace. Then we go back out of the bird song and we're back into the scripture. What do workers gain from their toil? Again, the whole darn thing just happened after I got fired. And now he's philosophizing on what are you going to gain from this stupid job they just fired you from? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. And Frank Maximus says, all life has its seasons. Jesus says, no one ever dies. I don't know if that's really Jesus. Sally Ritchie Color says, I paid for the Disclosure Summit. It's amazing. Next time I will go and meet you, David. Hugs. He says, I know there is nothing better than for people to be happy and to do good while they live. That each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all of their work. This is the gift of God. So what he's really telling me now, I was so blown away. I literally was, just tears are just openly streaming down my face by the time I got done reading this. It was so incredible because he's saying there's nothing better for you than to be happy and find satisfaction in the work that you're doing so you can do good while you live. This is the gift of God. I'm clearly not going to get there by dehumanizing the patients in a mental hospital. And so this we're gonna just actually I am gonna keep going just on that slide. I gotta figure out how to keep the show to 3 hours, and we're already at that point, so I have to end very soon. But we're gonna go to the next slide here. So this happened in 1995, and it was really kind of sad because I had this amazing automatic writing experience, and I get this Bible scripture that's like handpicked for me. And I'm like, well, what in the world? Christianity, the Bible. I'm not into Christianity. But something wants me to read the Bible, and it knew that that the wicked are gonna gather up the money to be given to the just. And so eventually someday I won't be so poor working for $6 an hour, which is what the jobs were at that time. I think the best I ever made was $6.25. I never even busted into $7 an hour, honestly. I don't think I ever had a job that was, the mental hospital paid $7 an hour. I remember that now. All the other jobs I had paid around $6 an hour. I got that extra dollar for the crazy factor of being in the mental hospital. So I got this whole thing, and it was so frustrating because like a whole year went by and nothing happened. This was Thanksgiving 1995. Automatic writing. I'm like, okay, God, what's next? What's going on? Why haven't you talked to me? I mean, I'd really love to hear from you again. It's kind of been a long time. What the hell? I mean, yeah, this is amazing. Thank you for the ox symbol and all that stuff. We'll even put him in our little wormhole up here. But like, no, there's something wrong. Why haven't you spoken to me again? And I got sad about it, and I cried about it and prayed about it. And then eventually the answer came when I was online. And I found out about something that this researcher named Joe Mason called the dream voice. Use the remote viewing protocols. You don't analyze anything, no emotional reactions. Tune into the voice and pick up what it says and then just start writing it down. So this began on November 10th, 1996, where Archangel Michael began speaking, and it now has led to the books, which in next week's show, I'm going to talk about Michael's own prophecies of 2025, and then I'm going to combine them with a deeper dive on the Virgin Mary at Garabandal. But I am totally out of time for this particular show, so let's skip ahead once again to the global meditation slide because we are out of time. So here we go. Let's read a couple of your comments before I say adios. Thanks again, David, says Lily Clement. I'm so grateful for your teachings and understanding of what we were able to do ourselves. Much love and approval. Tarotina says, David, you have 497,000 followers who love you, other millions who haven't discovered this channel yet. They will all come together soon, sending you our love. Sista sends me $5. Thank you for all you do from Australia. Lexi Baby says, why 3 hours? Or Lexi Abby says, why 3 hours, except it's a long time for you. And thanks for the work. Kwang Hong Chan says, sorry I couldn't make it to the conference because of money problems. I was supposed to send Chris Beskar my resume as well. Yes, You can send us a resume. You can visit Stavati Aerospace on Twitter. You can visit our webpage, stavati.com. We have lots of great resumes, and we are getting ready to hire lots and lots of people. So Scarlet Fire says, bless this mess, Lord. It's going fast. As soon as I start reading it, you guys just pick up the speed. The shrine containing Tutankhamun's sarcophagus is the Ark of the Covenant, MK Monarch 2.0. I never heard that before. Ashley Gomez says, I love you. I've been following you since 2019. Carlos Soltero says, hello from Mexico. Hopeful Hope says, I just got here and I'm going to watch the replay. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Fraser Ray says, thank you, David. This allows people to understand how we are of choice and teaching many of us to teach the truth. Wow. So thank you for the great show today. Looking good. Take care always. Hello from Orlando, Florida. When is your next stream? I'm trying to do it every Sunday. Okay, so I think we're just about out of our budget for time. And again, it's just a good idea. I'm down to 5,200. It's amazing I've still got 5,000 people here. Because again, this is over 3 hours, it just becomes pretty excessive. I'm at 3 hours and 10 minutes right now. We'll keep it about 3 hours and 15. Okay, so without further ado, let's have you put both feet flat on the floor. Take a nice deep breath. Make sure I'm in focus as we do this. So I now ask you to just take a nice deep breath in and slowly exhale. Breathing in love, healing, and redemption as we become more and more aware of the forces that do exist in our reality. Allowing yourself to relax, knowing that as we do this, 5,200 of us all together in real-time live, this is the meditation effect, and it does improve the world, bringing about healing and peace, restoration, and renewal. No matter what it is that happened to us, no matter how badly we may have been mistreated or abused, there is a higher power. There is a one infinite creator. There is a God, or whatever you choose to identify it as. An intelligence that authored the universe into existence, that does allow for the most outrageous forms of good and evil. And the evil is only there as an incentive for us to develop boundaries. And as the Zoroastrian prophecies say, evil is built to be defeated. Ahriman, or Satan, is intentionally built to be destroyed through the focused and concentrated efforts of the just. And now we find out that in 1961 to 65, many, many people came to see the visions of Mother Mary and Archangel Michael at Garabandal. And now Michael has returned to tell us what these visions mean. That at the end of the age, there will be a warning. There will be some type of cosmic event that causes everyone to have a moment of true spiritual clarity, much like a psychedelic experience, but Michael and Mary revealed at Garabandal that after this happens, skeptics will try to debunk the whole thing, say that it was just the result of a solar flare, that perhaps people lost oxygen in their brain, or it was some type of electromagnetic anomaly, whatever the heck it was. And yet, you have been told in advance that this will happen. So you will not be one of the ones to fall into confusion. We can heed this warning, and we can then, within apparently a year, go into the second wave of ascension, where light body activation becomes possible. And this is what Michael and Mary called the miracle. No matter what may have happened to you in your childhood or in past lives, no matter what horrors you may have seen or been through, there is a loving consciousness in this universe, and it loves you more than you can possibly imagine. As you breathe in, you're breathing in healing light prana, energy that transforms your DNA, transforms your soul, and brings you to a higher level of what your true self is meant to be. Hold this space with me now, a space where we co-create a positive future, where any darkness and evil is cleansed from the planet through the focused efforts of people like you and me, doing what we know in our hearts is right. Because if there is great evil in the world, then there must also be a God. There must also be a creator, something positive to balance this horrific negativity. So it is important that we learn not to focus on the doom and gloom, not to focus on the things that make us feel bad, not to focus on what may or may not have happened to us in a parallel reality, if we were hurt, if we were abused. Whatever memories we do have of people who mistreated us, who were unkind to us, we can just let all of that go. And instead, breathe in trust. Breathe in love. Breathe in renewal. The promise of the Virgin Mary, the promise of Archangel Michael, that there will be this massive consciousness event that will happen sometime apparently between March and May of next year, most likely. It's really not very far away. And when we get to this moment in time, what a glorious thing that will be. Because now we are experiencing what it will be like to have full cosmic awareness. We will grasp the timelessness of the universe, the timelessness of our soul. We will have profound, incredible insights. This was given in Garabandal and again in Michael Prophecies. And then what follows is the miracle. We don't need to listen to those skeptics who think they know everything and are above and beyond the Virgin Mary. They're above and beyond Jesus. They're above and beyond the Creator. They just make up their own way through things, and they only believe in the material, in what is hard and tangible, in what they see right in front of themselves. They do not dare to believe that these other things are true because, what if I'm making mistakes? Well, you don't need to make mistakes. There is a melting, relaxing influence of love. As you relax into that loving consciousness, you don't need to feel that anything in your life went the wrong way. Everything about you is perfect just the way you are, and you deserve to be loved and respected without having to change anything about yourself to make someone else happy. Of course, out of a loving consciousness, you can see ways in which you might be able to help others feel better and feel more loved. But by no means do you need to do this. You do not need to suffer. You do not need to be tortured. You do not need to be respected. In fact, you have the sovereign right as a soul to deserve love, to deserve respect, and to claim that love and respect. And if you don't see it, and if it's not being given to you, you have every right to withdraw from that situation without obligation. This is one of the teachings of the Law of One. We keep on finding our path for greater and greater levels of love, greater and greater levels of peace, greater and greater levels of attainment. And this path continues forward in lifetime after lifetime. But now, third density Earth is rolling up like a scroll. All of the ancient prophecies are being fulfilled. We are in the time of times. This is the moment that we have been waiting for so many eons, where we will finally get to see the veil pulled away, a glimpse of cosmic consciousness in 2025, as Michael says, and as the Virgin Mary and Michael said at Garabandal. And what happens next is a miracle. Light body activation, a non-catastrophic ascension, because we have learned our lessons. Whether you are ready for this event or not has everything to do with the degree to which you have embraced the principles of love, forgiveness, compassion, patience, and goodwill to everyone around you. As you spread this love, you are changing the very physics of our planet and guaranteeing that we will get the future that we have always been seeking in our wildest spiritual imaginings. Although people may denounce you and point their fingers and scowl at you and tell you that you're not good enough, you're not thin enough, you're not young looking enough, you're not smart enough, etc., this is just coming out of their own darkness and misery. Michael and Mother Mary and all of the angelic pantheon tell us that you are perfect. You are a being of infinite worth. There is nothing wrong with you. You are made in the image of the Creator, and you are a manifestation of divine grace here on earth. And you can take the energy that we have raised, this increase in faith, this increase in the positive, and send it to all those areas where people are suffering, whether adults or children, all those pockets of darkness where people decide that practicing evil is a fun thing to do. Visualize them giving up these evil practices, recognizing that they are not thrown in the trash can by the universe. Everyone will receive full redemption. Everyone will receive cosmic communion. So send this energy to all those in need of prayer and healing all over the world, imagining the whole world now gleaming with beautiful white light. Send this energy to those you love as well as those who may have hurt you. If you're ready for it, see if you can find forgiveness. Look at their faces and understand that they lived in spiritual darkness. They did not understand what they were doing, and they know not what they do. And now lastly, send this energy back to yourself. Envision yourself surrounded with white light, for you are the light. You are the love. You are the one infinite Creator. This is as it was, as it is now, and as it always shall be, and nothing and no one can take that from you. And so it is. Now start breathing your way back into the room, back into your body. Coming back to full awareness now, and you're here with me. We've had a wonderful, amazing show. You've seen some very interesting prophetic artwork, the artwork of a COVID needle-based apocalypse, whatever that was in my drawing of Reagan. It's very fascinating, the prophecy of Corey Good, that we were going to do digital television together, the secret space program. I have shared a lot of personal information with you today. You've been very cool. There haven't been any trolls in the comments, and I really want to thank you guys. We still have 4,827 people watching now. That is the meditation effect. That means we're creating a global healing right now. It's going to reduce war, crime, terrorism, fatalities dramatically and pave the way for angelic brothers and sisters to return. So I'm David Wilcock. I want to thank you for watching. I'm so glad that you were here with me today. Let's have a couple last-minute comments. Scarlet Fire says, I am light, I am free, I am one with source, unity, equality, and mutual respect. Oops, I lost that one. It's going too fast. All be blessed, someone says. Thank you, someone says. Soul wisdom, thank you, love to all. I miss this meditation stuff. Thank you, David. We are all divine, sovereign, and free. Keep your vibes high. We love you, David. Thank you, David. This was beautiful. May God bless you beyond your wildest dreams. Peace, love, and abundance. I mean, look at how fast this is going. Even right at the end, we got 4,800 people still watching. So thank you, guys. You are my family. I want to thank you for this family reunion. And this stuff that I'm telling you is not going to stay secret or classified for very long. We're all going to learn the truth very soon because the great warning and the great miracle are coming. I was so blown away when I found out that Michael and Mary spoke about this in Garabandal. It changed my whole attitude. I am sober. I'm going to stay sober. Thank you for your loving support, and we will see you in the next show. I got to cut to the slide. Thanks, everybody. I really do love it. I'm so glad you're here.